On this week's GTA 6 o'clock, 80 scenes analysed, over 100 new details, the ultimate trailer breakdown. It's all here on this week's GTA 6 o'clock. Hello and welcome to this special report on GTA 6 o'clock, the world's most in-depth and best connected GTA 6 show. It's been a week since trailer 2 dropped out of nowhere, and so the time has come for our ultimate trailer breakdown. I am James JJ Jarvis, and joining me in our Los Santos studio is Dan DD Dawkins. Hello, Dan.
Hello, James. Really excited to do this. There's been so much analysis across the web in the last week, but I'm sure we've got things you've never heard before.
Yes, we definitely have that. Everyone has waited long enough for our analysis of this, so shall we get right into it?
Let's dive in.
Okay, so last week we did a first initial reaction. Thank you for all your comments and contributions to that. It was great. We did mention then the release date of May 26th, 2026 being Bonnie from Bonnie and Clyde's funeral date. But what we didn't mention is it did also Ray Liotta's the day of his death, which was May 26th, 2022, known to us, of course, as Tommy Vercetti in GTA Vice City, which came out in 2002. So there's another prominent date there that maybe lends more credibility to it actually sticking to that day, because those two things are both amazing coincidences if it doesn't happen.
Just two coincidences feels three's a pattern, isn't it?
It is. That's the rule.
It's still just the wrong side of a pattern, but it looks quite compelling to me.
So as we get into this, we should say, obviously watch trailer 2 if you haven't. I'm sure all of you listening to this have, but we're not going to play it all through once and then go back through and analyze every scene. We're just going to jump straight in and analyze every scene. As I say, there are 80 scenes in the trailer. We are just doing the trailer today. We're not even going to do the additional screenshots, artwork, all the stuff on the website. That is a whole nother, probably more than one episode. Important to note, in the last week, that Rockstar has confirmed this trailer was captured entirely in-game from a PlayStation 5, and they say it's comprised of equal parts gameplay and cutscenes. I don't think we're going to be able to identify which are which throughout this analysis, but keep that in mind and try and do it as we go through. If it is equal parts gameplay and cutscenes, which one is which in this trailer?
Yeah, I'm struggling to tell. And what I do think is, while they're saying gameplay, I think they mean gameplay, but from a camera angle you wouldn't normally play from. Hence, it doesn't look like gameplay. All the GTA games, particularly when you're driving your car, this option, like Red Dead, you pop out of the car, you view it from a distant angle. It looks fabulous. It's just really hard to control unless you're going in a straight line. So I think that's why people have been so confused.
Yeah. So some of these scenes are connected to each other. Some of them are from the same scene or the same location. We're going to pick a couple of things in each one to talk about. It's going to go very deep in some of these scenes, so strap in. It's going to be a long one. And just before we get to that, I should say that this has been a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun going through all this stuff, making all these connections. It's probably taken a number of hours, probably 10 plus, to pull all of this together. But I love it. This kind of analysis and investigation to what things might be connected, what everything says on the wall is great. So this is really exciting. There might be, of course, even at this stage, a few things that we get wrong or things that we want you to clarify in the comments. So if you do see anything extra along the way, let us know. And with that, let's jump straight in to the first scene of the trailer, which is this beautiful shot of what I'm going to say is the Leonida Keys, Florida Keys in real life. And this is the establishing shot for the trailer. We've talked about this before. There's the 6 little ducks that you talked about in last week's episode, Dan, in the top left, flying across. We have got a question in the notes here about whether this is, you can see Jason's house or the house Jason is working on in this shot. I don't think you can, because some of the construction of the house is different, but I don't know if you were thinking the other way.
No, I think I'm inclined to agree with you. We're talking about, there's a house sort of in the center lower left, greenhouse, which in some ways looks similar to the house we see Jason on. However, I think you're right, James. There's a few things that are potentially missing. There's a satellite dish we see later on. We don't see it here. That's probably more to do with the angle than anything. There's also, this is getting really obscure, there's a bit later on where you see through Jason's house and you can see to the other side. And actually, that doesn't look quite the same either. I think the umbrella is a different color. But there's probably, I think there's a few more significant things around the bottom end of the house where it's cut away.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a good establishing shot for the location that we are about to see, as in Leonida Keys, but not anything, it doesn't show us the house that we're about to see in the next scene. It's just like, hey, get a sense of the area because the house is in this area, but you can't actually see it in this shot. If that makes sense. I hope it does.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. The one thing I would say, if I was trying to make a positive case for it, is that it's possible that is all of the footage in this grabbed from exactly the same build at the same moment? Probably, but it's possible. And on later shows, we're going to talk a little bit about how the game has developed from trailer 1 to trailer 2. Some things have absolutely, definitely changed. So I wouldn't rule out some details being different, but I'm inclined to agree. I don't think it is, even though it's easy at surface glance to think maybe it is. And I think you're right. I think the area's right. The sequence of events implies that, but is it literally the same house? Some details don't align.
And speaking of details, there are some really nice ones in this shot. In the house to the left of that greenhouse with the blue roof, there's like a heart-shaped swimming pool. There's another unusually shaped swimming pool on the right-hand side of that house. But I like the heart-shaped one. That's really nice. And just to the left of that heart-shaped pool, you can see a pod of dolphins swimming along, which you might have missed the first time. Dolphins swim around together. They're social mammals. They interact with each other. They protect each other and hunt for food as a team. Pod life plays a very important role in protecting dolphins from predators, such as sharks. So there is your first nature lesson in this analysis.
Oh, thank you.
But really good to see a bit of wildlife there and so close to some houses. I think that's going to be super fun to play. One quick thing before we move on then, Dan, you've noticed a blimp also in the top right of this shot?
Yeah, if you sort of scroll top right, zoom, there's and this is what seems to be the nature of the online discourse, is that people are saying it is a tethered aerostat radar system, which is used to monitor low altitude aerial activity. Now, if it's not that, it just looks like a blimp. But I think the idea of it being, it does look like it's low down and tethered. So yeah, it's not too hard to spot if you zoom in on the skyline.
Right, next up is the first time that we see Jason. This is his classic line, "I'm just up here fixing some leaks," which, as we mentioned last week, is a reference to the 2022 leaks. Everything in this trailer pretty much confirms all of the speculation from those leaks and some of the locations, some of the characters and all of that kind of thing. So this is our first introduction in this trailer to Jason Duval. Now, on the website, it says Jason wants an easy life, but things just keep getting harder. Jason grew up around grifters and crooks. After a stint in the army, I think that's quite important, trying to shake off his troubled teens, he found himself in the Keys doing what he knows best, working for local drug runners. It might be time to try something new. A bit further down on the website, it says meeting Lucia could be the best or worst thing to ever happen to him. Jason knows how he'd like it to turn out, but right now, it's hard to tell. So that is a little character profile on Jason. In the bottom left of this shot, what's really nice is you can see what I think is an iguana. Now, the little iguanas in real life can be quite playful and active. Once they bond with their owners, which takes some time, they do apparently make great pets. Iguanas are highly intelligent and can be tamed well. However, if they do not get proper care and training, They can be very moody and aggressive. They live between 15 and 20 years, but it varies greatly depending on whether they are wild animals or captives. A pet iguana will live between 15 and 20 years, but in nature, they don't normally live past 8. So keep that in mind, that iguanas are a long-term commitment. Do you think the presence of this iguana is a suggestion that the person who owns it is nearby in this shot, or that it actually belongs to Jason and or Lucia if in fact they are living in this shack together?
This is good because there's a few. This actually starts a thread of something that I think some people haven't picked up on. First of all, there seems to be a few people online from various GTA community brands who've said, I don't know based on what evidence, oh look, this is Jason and Lucia's pet iguana. But I didn't know what else stood this up as an idea. So I was a bit, I wasn't saying it couldn't be, but I didn't feel certain about that. Now, about this being their house and them living together, my feeling is that, and we'll explore this later on, at this point in time, when we see Jason saying just fixing some leaks, I do not believe Lucia is living with him, and there's some evidence to suggest that, which we can either dive into now or later. I think later is probably better because we can pull out a few details.
Yeah, once she arrives in the house, I think that does change things. I tend to agree with you. I think this is probably pre-Lucia. At some point, Jason might already have met her previously, but they are not shacking up together.
Yes.
And I think the further evidence to that is if you look at one of the screenshots. I know we said we weren't going to go too much into the screenshots away from the trailer, but there's a Carl Hampton screenshot which has him and his friend in a bar, and the iguana, I am assuming it's the same one because it's massive, is draped over somebody's shoulders in that bar. Now, you could say Jason has taken it to the bar and given it to somebody.
Yes.
And say, look after this while I play pool. Or it belongs to that person who's in the bar and, they're just good friends with Jason. Maybe they live in the same area. The iguana's just allowed to roam between houses like a cat would in England, kind of thing.
Yeah. And is it literally the same iguana, do you think? Or is it hard to tell?
I mean, have you seen it? It's a big... If there's more than one iguana that they're putting in this trailer,
Look.
I can't identify the iguana from a distance.
Yeah, and maybe someone in actual Florida can tell me, are they just loads of iguanas casually rolling around? Actually, when you compare the screenshot to the one we see in the trailer, I think actually they're pretty similar looking. They've got it's got a purple body and then a striped yellow and black tail.
Which would be the same.
So, I wouldn't say confirmed, probable. It's the same iguana, hence the iguana might have some more significance, as you say. But whether it belongs to them or not, I don't know. It's not 100% confirmed, I would say, but it looks like the same iguana.
Yeah, and I mean, as we go further into this, we will see that Jason and Lucia do have some exotic creatures in the house, one of which is a snake. Are you going to have a snake and an iguana living together? Not in the same tank, obviously, but in the same house. That's quite a lot of things to look after. But maybe it's a pet upgrade system as well. Trade in the snake, get an iguana. Who knows? Who knows? While we're talking about this extra screenshot, there's a couple of things in it that might be worth talking about. There's a sign above the bar that says Joe Short's Blast something, and it looks like it's pieces of decking being formed into the shape of a fish. And at the bottom, it says, destroyed doing what he loved, which I assume then goes on to say fishing because there's a fishing rod under that thing. So extrapolating, which is everyone's favorite thing to do on this show, is this someone who was fishing for a shark, maybe, hooked a shark, tried to stop themselves going off the end of a pier and destroyed their like little jetty thing, ripped it all up. And then it was hung on the wall as a memento of, remember that time you nearly caught a shark and destroyed your little jetty? Who knows? But this appears to be some fishing-related thing. There's also quite a lot of other things. There's a sign on the back in the background here that says, yes, we have Wi-Fi. There is actually a Wi-Fi password underneath of it, but I can't quite make it out in this screenshot. And here we can see for the first time we're going to be talking about it, is Jason's tattoo, which is for the Marauders B Company, which is we're going to guess, from his time in the army. As we just mentioned, he did spend some time in the army there. There was some speculations that he's a paratrooper unit because of the parachute that he's got on there, but I think some kind of Ranger Special Forces paratrooper makes sense. It also, later on in the trailer, makes more sense when people are questioning whether Jason may or may not be a federal agent. I wonder whether that's in a reaction to like the way he can handle weapons and like knows a lot of sort of more specific army soldier stuff. That's speculation, but I think his background is important. So let's jump back into the trailer here, and the next scene that we've got, this is Brian Hedder, which I think you've got quite a lot to say about, Dan. But just before we get into that, there is a car in the background in the back right here. Looks sort of Cadillac-y. That is the same car that we saw a glimpse of in the previous shot. So we can assume that this is the same location. And as it zooms out, I think that is confirmed. But I'm not sure if Jason's Vapid is parked here anymore. Like you can see that in the previous shot, and it might just be the camera angle, but does it line up to have his car there? I'm not sure. And then there's some tire tracks from Brian's truck that you can still see in the mud, which is a great little bit of detail there. But Dan, why didn't you tell us about Brian?
So from the official description, we know Brian is a classic drug runner from the golden age of smuggling in the Keys, whatever that golden age was. A still moving product through his boatyard, which we actually glimpse later on, with his third wife, Laurie, who we also think we can find from one of the screenshots. So there's a screenshot called Brian_Hedder, _04. We were discussing off air. It seemed highly probable that is Laurie. And it says Brian's been around long enough to let others do his dirty work, and those others include Jason.
You would imagine.
Yeah. And it says about him, it says he looks like a Leonida Beach bum, but he moves like a great white shark. We also know, we talked about this last week, Brian's letting Jason live rent-free at one of his properties, which is almost certainly the one we can see, so long as he helps with local shakedowns and stops by for Laurie's sangria once in a while. Now, the local shakedown might well be the scene we see in a minute, where he disturbs the sort of hippie dudes with the pipes and he seems to rough them up. That looks like a low-level shakedown. We don't know that for a fact, but it does look like the kind of errand that Brian would have him running. It's not quite the analog, but if for anyone who's watched the Netflix TV series Ozark, it's Brian's a little bit like Jacob, but I don't know if he's like a sort of local he's like a local southern drug lord. But the real power in that relationship is Darlene, who's utterly chilling. It doesn't look like Laurie's that way if she's dishing out the sangria and is all smiles. But you never know. Maybe Laurie's got higher significance to the plot, or she's just a light relief character. It's hard to say.
Well, yeah, but on that, I guess there is another clip of her, which we can see on the website, when she's like sort of walking behind Brian and holding an automatic rifle and looks like quite kitted out and ready to go and, do some crime. Yeah,
so light relief, not so much.
Well, some light relief, but also very ready to go and shoot someone in the face if she has to, maybe.
Yes, correct.
So yeah, it's great to be able to identify her as well and see what kind of things she is up to. Now, the fourth scene here, I don't think we've got too much to say because it's a continuation of the last couple of scenes, essentially. It is Jason getting down from the roof, carrying a box of tools. But there's not anything really significant. There's a couple of boats in the background, but I don't think we need to.
It looks
dwell on
like
this.
there's the cargo boat that looks almost like a train that I think we can glimpse in trailer 1. Is it literally the same? We'd have to put them side by side, but whether that is creates a location parallel or whether we just happen to be on the same route as it goes. But, let's see. Let's look at those things side by side and make that call.
The next shot is a close-up of Brian where he's telling Jason to go out and do some of those jobs. As we mentioned in last week's show, in the bins in the background there, you can see a couple of raccoons foraging for some food. Interesting fact, second nature fact of this analysis, there is actually an island in Miami called Raccoon Island or Sandspur Island. I think some of the maybe tourism firms named it Raccoon Island and the locals still call it Sandspur Island. But this apparently is where you can see many types of wildlife. It's home to a large community of raccoons along with various bird species. You may also spot marine life such as manatees, come on, and dolphins during your tour. In real life, it's north of North Beach, which is one of the beaches on the coastline of Miami, but not far away. Would not surprise me if Raccoon Island, or whatever Rockstar decide to call it, ends up being a place that you can take a boat to in GTA 6. Scene 6 is Jason outside his house. This is what we imagine is same house, same location, probably same time in the story as well that all of the previous scenes have been in. You can see a close-up here of Jason's tattoo, which is a bird being impaled by an arrow. I couldn't find any direct references to what that might be. The bird is like a bit like a phoenix, which is a mythical bird that symbolizes rebirth and renewal, often includes flames or dynamic elements like arrows to represent struggle and transformation. So it could be some kind of symbolism to do with that, but it's not a common thing. Like, you can't Google image search this and find out loads of stuff. So maybe it's a phoenix, maybe it's not. Who knows?
I think whether it's related, like, did he get it at the same time as his military tattoo? Is it due to that affiliation, or is it more of a, like people, the reason people have tattoos, very often it's a personal belief or to signify a character transformation or an intention? We don't know. Or was it just something to do with the paratrooper regiment he was in? This is all really hard to know, but he has got 2 significant tattoos.
The next shot ends up having a boat in it on the far right-hand side. Now, there's been heavy speculation, and I will say heavy speculation, that this is Michael's boat, which got stolen in GTA 5, as you'll remember. The theory is that this has somehow made its way to Vice City from Los Santos. There's loads of things around, like, did Jason take it? Was it like a small-time crook that took it and now it's somehow ended up in Vice City and Jason or Brian potentially managed to get hold of it? Obviously, it's Brian's boat repairs, so maybe he did come into a boat like this and start fixing it up. But I think the bigger question is, do we even think that it's Michael's boat? It's pretty much the same boat model that's been in GTA games since Vice City. It doesn't look exactly the same. Like, true, there could have been some modifications done on it because it's been stolen from somewhere and they want to make it look not quite the same. But I am leaning, the more we look at this, more towards that it's just the same type of boat rather than it being exactly the same boat.
That's what I think. The boat and its reference to being Michael's boat is a microcosm of the dangers of the online age and the need for a quick hit and the culture. The thing we do, right? The culture of having to create a theory, create something new. On surface glance, this passes the truthiness test. It looks 7 out of 10 true enough to make you want to believe it, right? Unfortunately, reality gets in the way. I went through the gameplay of the father and son mission from GTA 5 and took screen capture, which, maybe we can put them on screen now. Screen capture of the boat in high res and it looks close, but it's not the same. Now, at the very surface level, it's the deck of the boat. In one is wooden, in the other it looks worn, weathered, or literally white. Now, that could be a cosmetic thing that you could say, yeah, maybe that's changed, or maybe they've refitted it or painted it, whatever. Much more significantly, the actual cabin of the boat, or whatever you would call the main bit you sit in, is like significantly further back on the Grand Theft Auto 5 version. That's a fundamental thing that just doesn't work. And then the closer you look, the more the details start to fall apart. So sadly, like, I don't think it is the same boat. Like, it's, like you say, looks like the same model or a version of the model. It just literally isn't the same or doesn't match the inspection test.
Yeah, and what I will say before everyone gets too disappointed is there are actually many references to past GTA locations and games in this trailer. So I don't think that they're ruling out a connection between other cities that we've been in before.
Oh, yeah,
it's
sure.
just, it might not be at this point, this one. Like, Los Santos definitely exists in the world of GTA 6, and I think there's multiple other things that we can join the dots on. But before we get into that, the next scene is this one, Jason going into this house that he's been working on. Now, the common theory in this is that this is the shot that is a transition shot between cutscene and gameplay. And it does sort of line up if you compare it to some of the ones we got in GTA 5. You can see how this would seamlessly then transition into you walking into this house in full control of Jason. There's a great feature, a great point here that you made, Dan, that he's got sunburn on the back of his neck from probably working up on the roof too much. Whether that is a dynamic effect, like being out in the sun gets you sunburn, or it's just part of the storyline. I mean, that would be incredible to think that if you don't have a shirt on and you stay outside too much, you're going to get sunburn.
Yeah, it would be such a cool thing to actually have conscious tan lines. Like, say you wore a vest all the time and you took it off for any reason, and then your character had them burned in. It's a silly thing, but it's really cool, isn't it? And if you take that image of him walking into the house, I'm a sad and in many ways detailed person, and I was looking at this through Photoshop filters and turning up the brightness. You can see the sunburn even more. Then it's obvious anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's got a red mark on his neck. Also, then you can see, like, he's glistening. He's literally sweating. Like, whether again is that a cutscene detail, or will your character, after a period of exertion, if you were to zoom in on them as the camera, will they look actively sweaty and distressed? We don't know that yet, but we're talking so much about realism and dynamism. I think it's believable.
Yeah.
And I don't think, for example, Red Dead 2 had a sweat system, did it?
Not from what the horses got sweaty.
Oh, well, okay.
So now we're just making people sweaty.
Well, there we go. So there's a sweating mechanic within the Rockstar universe. I just think it shows the details are so realistic, it's easy to forget they're happening because it's just like reality. And it's important, I think, occasionally to pause and say, this is not a thing normal games do, and you don't realise they're not doing it until it's pointed out.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't become a fully fledged thing in the game, it's being suggested here that it is a thing. So, we probably will see that kind of thing in cutscenes. Speaking of other little details, once Jason pushes the door and goes inside, you can see what will eventually become the snake tank further down the hallway. So that is already in place at this stage. You can also see a stepladder in there and a spray bottle, I think, later on. Yeah,
there's in a scene later on where they're in the house, and then she says this place is just the start. There's a spray bottle visible next to the snake tank, and it's the same. Well, I think it's the same spray bottle. You can see through the house. When again, I took the image, cranked up the brightness, and then actually everything is quite visible. Now, if you take that a little bit further, you can actually then see through the house, and you can then see what looks like the ocean on the other side of the house. Hence, I think mentally drawing the link between the first frame and this building. Like that side of it feels correct, but this might be a result of turning the brightness up, right? There's an umbrella visible, a parasol umbrella visible through the house on the other side, but in this screenshot, it looks white and yellow, but the one in the very first frame is, I think, a slightly different color. It's more like what looks like a solid orange color. Now, this might be lighting effects, what happens when you distort and flare up an image. Also, like we said, it might literally be a different house.
Yeah, I'm inclined to think that it is a different house and it's the right setting, but we don't see the house in that first shot.
And if that's the case, this would be another incremental detail to stand that up because the umbrellas are different.
Yes. One extra, if we're going tiny details, things that I would like to point out is I think that you can pause this at the right point and see on Jason's watch that is 11 minutes past 10 in the morning, possibly 17 minutes past 10.
Huh.
It's quite hard to tell because it's quite a blurry shot. But there's quite a few instances in this analysis that we'll go through where you can, I think, almost identify the time, which is a great little detail. Moving on to the scene of Jason driving away in his, what I think is his Vapid. He drives down the street. We go past a woman. Well, first of all, we go past a man, but then we go past a woman who's outside her house. She's wearing pink. She has a pink car. There were pink paw prints on her car as sort of like a bit of decal work. And also, she is holding a chihuahua. Now, I think holding the chihuahua is important. Are we going to be able to pick dogs up in this version of GTA 6? More on that later.
Oh.
Great little details in this scene as well. There's real-time reflections in the car mirrors for the first time in the GTA series, so you can see what's happening in the side mirrors and behind him. As I say, I think this is the same Vapid that was parked outside Jason's house, and he is wearing the Leonidas shirt that we see in the very next shot, which is this one.
Yeah, and I think all of this feels like it's got an intentional chronology. In the scene where he's talking to Brian Hedder, he talks about fixing some leaks. Even though he's wearing a hat, when he goes into the house, you can see the back of his hair is actually quite long and quite matted, and his beard's a bit thicker and shaggier. When we see him later in the trailer, he's more, buzz cut, a bit, it looks like Lucia said, sort yourself out, basically. And he's had a little haircut. Now, because of the way hair works in real life, that would suggest a lot of this stuff is like before, like when his hair was longer before he had a haircut. So I think there's a chronology to fixing up the house. I think, that's before Lucia's been let out and he's met her. And I think the job he's doing for Brian is probably not that far away from that scene where he's talking about fixing the leaks because he looks the same. So I think you could draw a line between that, him driving in the car to go to the place where he roughs up those dudes.
Yeah, there's a very interesting wider point here in how much this trailer is actually showing. I think from going through it, there's not actually that much, there's not many different locations in this, even though it seems like there is a lot. I think a lot of it is Florida Keys area. I also don't think there's many missions or sequences that we're seeing here. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 different strands, and that's probably it in a game that is going to be, as we know, absolutely huge. So even though it feels like there's so much stuff to talk about here, I think we're really seeing like quite a microscopic bit of the game.
Ding, 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 ding to this. This is something that I was thinking about, was that actually, and even if you compare alongside trailer 1, we're seeing a lot of the same things, moments or missions across trailer 1 and trailer 2. Rockstar, I don't think, are giving much away. They're just showing lots of different angled snippets or, hours apart moments from what might be, in this full sweep of the game, a really tiny section.
Yeah.
There's a few scenes I think would that feel out of time, right?
Yeah.
And we can talk about them as we get to them, but a lot of it feels compacted, like really tight. This is probably even a separate episode, maybe of us trying to put the chronology together and pull the scenes and start building the story properly. But I 100% agree with you. So I think paying close attention to these details is important. Rockstar sort of deliberately, not misleading us, but like putting our eyeballs in one direction? Probably. I think there's some big surprises to come.
Yeah, for sure. On this scene then, the 10th scene in the trailer, there is a lot going on in this shot. Jason is holding a baseball bat, we assume because he's about to come in and rough some people up here. There's various signs above the door which fit to, I think, the theme of this shot. There's like alien activity in area, summer of love, signs above the door. This feels, there's a big crystal on the desk. This feels like one of those kind of crystal healing, slightly more like open-minded leaning, shall we say, type shops.
It feels like a place you go in with the legal idea of buying a crystal and leave with a bag of something else.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a very interesting bit here on the left-hand side where there's postcards for sale for $1. And the speculation, and I first jumped to this thing, is you can see one of those postcards and it looks like potentially the outline of the map of the game. But on closer inspection, maybe you think this isn't actually the map.
So I spent a distressing amount of time screen capping this and AI upscaling it with various AI tools and getting angry with how many scam AI tools there are. I was just showing James this off air and I think we're of a mind here. Initially, again, this is back to that truthiness thing of something feeling true or you wanting it to be true. I could buy the idea that these are two islands. It looks like that. It's very fuzzy and you can't tell. But like when you just screen cap the original sort of fuzzier version, it's very definitely like a smiling sun on the right-hand side. And then you go through the thought process of going, yes, but it's still two joined up islands on the left. But it sort of isn't. When you look at the fuzzy low res, it looks more like two oranges with some leaves on them.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, as soon as you said that, I was coming and going, this is the map. Wonder what that thing on the left-hand side is. I'll dismiss that because it doesn't fit the narrative.
Yeah.
But as soon as you went, actually, they're oranges with leaves on, your brain goes, oh, yeah, that is oranges with leaves on.
You can't unsee the oranges.
Yeah.
And there's something about, it's the sort of, I know this is not California, but it's like the California orange grove or something. The sun shining on the fruits of Leonida. It feels like something that would be a postcard.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite work. And actually, if it was the map or the two islands, we were also discussing this off air, their arrangement doesn't align with what we believe from the mapping project work that is almost certainly really accurate now. So I just don't, on it, could there be more islands and more things to explore? Sure. But is this the definitive proof? Like, no.
Yeah.
And this is another thing that blew up on social media that just people didn't really examine.
Yeah. It's also not the kind of thing that you'd put on a postcard. Like if you were going to put this kind of thing on a postcard that was like identifying smaller islands but giving you a bigger picture of them, normally there's a big, magnifying glass over a certain area that goes, this is where you see this, this, and this. So, no, I'm very much on board with this is definitely just some oranges. I will go away disappointed, but that's fine. There's plenty more to discuss here. Including, if you look at the till that we can see in this shot, if you zoom all the way back out and actually look at the till on the left-hand side, there's a QR code on the till, which I haven't been able to scan on my phone in real life. Will you be able to scan it with your phone in GTA 6? Who knows? Let's wait and see. There's a Fleeca Bank sticker on here, which is the banking and credit card company from previous GTAs. And if you scroll over to the guy, you can see that he's wearing a T-shirt that says Dodo's Rising on the sleeve. And the image appears to be a dodo with a gas mask on. I don't know what relevance that has. but maybe it's a T-shirt he just sells in the shop. I don't know what Dodo's Rising could be as a reference to, but there we are.
There's the you could say it's maybe some sort of joke or pun to the fact that the Dodo plane wasn't meant to be flown. Dodo's Rising is a degree of GTA mythology. I don't know. That could be a stretch. What I will say is there's definitely scenes later on or bits of artwork or things we'll talk about later that do hark back to previous GTAs. So I think it's right to look at the trailer with that level of scrutiny because Rockstar are leaving these clues in.
Of which there are many in this next shot, which is Jason robbing the till after he's hit who we assume the people who are in the shop with his baseball bat. You can see a couple of them on the floor behind him. This is one of the shots where you can actually see Jason's watch pretty clearly, and you can see that the time is 8 minutes past 11 in the morning. So he's come down for a big morning time and robbed this shop. There's also a phone number on the till, which is 305-555-0145. Now, this is interesting because 305, as I think we talked about on previous episodes, is the real life area code for Miami, Florida, and Miami-Dade County. It's also part of the Monroe County in the Florida Keys. They all use 305 as the prefix before the actual phone number. As we've mentioned before, 555 is the sequence of numbers that films and TV and seemingly now games use as a dead number. Like you could never ring it on your phone and get that number to work because it's got that 555 bracket in it. So 305 area code, 555 made up thing that isn't ever going to work. 0145, the part of the code that you would need to ring whatever that number is. Maybe it's the people who look after the till. Maybe it's the shop's phone number. I'm not sure. But that last 4 digits are going to be the bit that changes every time depending on what shop or who you are ringing in GTA 6.
I love it. I love the time detail as well because if the chronology is as we've been describing, it means it's sort of taken him between 45 minutes to an hour to go from his house to this place.
An in-game hour, yeah.
Yeah, an in-game hour, which, for us might be a few minutes, right? And I don't know the exact mapping of that. Actually, I should know that from the previous games. We could think about it with the new one. But it does actually give you a sense of how far you've driven to get there. So I think this is really neat. It's Rockstar actually giving us a clue about how these scenes are maybe tied together.
Extra details is this till is made by ONO, which is a Japanese electronics company that's appeared in GTA Online as part of the import-export update. They seem to make a lot of electronics for like office supplies and things. So now they are making all of the tills, it would seem, in GTA 6. And just next to the till, going on the thematic of the shop, there is a 420 packet of rolling papers next to the till for rolling up any things that you may be buying from this shop.
When you went in to buy a crystal.
Now, the next scene is really interesting because this is, I think, an in-game shot of the first-person view of driving the car, albeit maybe slightly zoomed than we would get in the actual game when we're playing it. But this is, I think, probably first-person view confirmed for GTA 6, and that it will, this is, I think, gameplay in the way that Rockstar would tell us that this is gameplay versus cutscene. I think this is gameplay. You can see who I assume is Jason's fingers tapping along to the song as well on the steering wheel, or at least tapping along to something, even just driving and tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. A couple of signs that point to VCI Airport, Ambrosia, Downtown, Southside, and Peacock Bay. The car in front of him has a My Ways sticker and #unbuckled sticker on the bumpers. And we can see 2 people riding in the back of that pickup truck as well. And as we picked up on last week, there were some workers here at the side of the road pruning trees or cutting the grass. And there's a couple of them at the start of the scene who are just there on their phone. One of them, a little bit through the scene, is there actually doing some work as well. And finally, as you scroll through this scene, there is a Fly US plane that flies overhead. So later on in a different episode, we would be able to pinpoint where all of these things are taking place in reference to other locations around the map.
How do we feel about the idea that there's 2 airports?
This is referencing probably a thing that we're going to come to a lot later, I believe, in that Lucia is wearing a T-shirt that says Gellhorn International, which has been another hotly debated topic on the internet about double airports being confirmed. And I will exclusively reveal that is not the case. Let me scroll up through my notes, and we might as well cover this now you've mentioned it. So yeah, this happens much later on in the trailer. We see Lucia in the apartment that we have previously seen with her and Jason in it. She's wearing a T-shirt with Gellhorn International written on it. I was first thinking, is this another international airport? Can you call a port like an international port? And maybe it's from there. But if you zoom right into it, you can actually see there's a picture of a racing car underneath the text. So that leads me to believe that this is likely based on the Sebring International Raceway, which is in Sebring, Florida. This is one of the oldest continuously operated racetracks in the US. Its first race was run in 1950. The Sebring is one of the classic racetracks in North American sports car racing and plays host to the 12 Hours of Sebring. The raceway occupies a portion of the Sebring Regional Airport, which is an active airport for private and commercial traffic that was originally built as Hendricks Army Airfield, which was a World War II training base for the United States Army Air Force. So the T-shirt she is wearing, almost certainly from the raceway. Does it suggest that there is a regional airport because that is where the raceway is based? Maybe. So there could be another, there's definitely going to be other airstrips in the game.
Yes.
Is it going to be an operational airport that you can, say, go to and use as an airport? Not sure. It could just be like a sort of landing strip where there are some planes, in hangars, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's some stuff to say about the mapping project, but let's save that for another day because there's leaks and/or mapping project stuff where they have put multiple airports on the map. Doesn't mean it's true. Let's save that for another day in the interest of time, I think.
So here we are with Jason on the beach lifting some weights. Now, there could be a world in which this is another transition scene within the game. So let's say, for example, character switching is still in, which we would believe to be the case based on the progression from GTA 5 to 6. This could be one of the scenes where you switch to Jason and he's just finishing off some weights on the beach and then gets up, goes off to do things. Or it could be a hint to the return of like gym mini games. Like the more you work out, the stronger you get, the more running you do, the more stamina you have, that kind of thing. This could be Rockstar hinting that stuff is coming back. For those of you who care, he is benching 100 kgs here. He's got which is, a significant amount of weight. He's got a sports drink with him. And this is a thing we touched on last week. He's also wearing in-ear headphones, a bit like Apple AirPods. And it's not the only time that we see this, which suggests, as we talked about last week, possibly on-the-go music while you are traveling around the world. You could put things on in your headphones, which I think would be good.
I think it would be good. I think it's likely. I think you see Lucia with in-ear headphones later on, which is more of a tell. I think it's significant that there's a couple of different songs in this trailer apart from the Pointer Sisters. You hear them both at slightly different volumes or like echoes. I think what they're trying to do is say, here it is out loud and normal, here it is in the car. Here it is out loud and normal, here it is seeping out of your earphones. I think there's little tells there in the audio cues. Let's see, but it seems to me like a thing they would do.
There's so many little details in this scene as well. There's a lady in the background who's walking her dog, which I enjoy. That's the second dog that we've had in this trailer. And the two women that walk sort of up to Jason, if you really slow this down, you can see as they walk, they flick sand forwards with their shoes and sort of deform the sand, which is an amazing bit of detail. And I imagine is the kind of thing that we'll be seeing when we are walking around in sandy bits. You'll be able to leave trails and footprints of just where you've gone and see all the deformation that you've done. There's a woman in the background who's taking a selfie, but there's also a camera, what I think is a camera, on a tripod, like right almost in the middle of the shot. She's wearing a pink crop top, and then just to the left of her, there is a tripod and a camera. So don't know what that's for. Has she brought that along with her? Is it even hers? Don't know, but there's something to be discussed there. And now Jason has gone to buy some beer, and this shot is full of details again. We can see on the left-hand side, there's the Leonida lottery, which promotes a new billionaire every week. Their logo, as we can see here, is a dolphin who wears some sunglasses.
Yeah.
That's nice. There's a cat on top of the ATM machine on the right-hand side. And we can see Jason's shirt, which says Leonida Marine Center. Now, I've got something to say about this, Dan. I want to know what you think about this theory. Underneath Leonida Marine Center, it says, "We support all marine life." Now, could this be a double fake out in that, yes, Jason works at the Leonida Marine Center where they do care about all marine life from the sea, but is it also a connection to Jason's army stint? And actually, they've called this Leonida Marine Center as a front to something that does support all marine life, in that ex-Marines can go there and do some crime. And this is basically, the Marine Center is the front for what could be Brian's, one of Brian's outlets for those kind of things that he's doing in the background.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but this is a really amusing thought piece and detail. I guess they couldn't have called it the Leonida Armed Forces Center because that might have been a bit of a tell. So the marine and marine comparison is quite cute. And I wonder whether it's either, is it as literal, or is it more of a rock star hint about the fact that, is his marine career as in the past as the bio suggests? We don't know. Which side of the law is he on? We don't know. Maybe it's nothing, but I think it's a really fun play on words, at minimum, if not more.
There's some other great little details in this scene. Jason has what I think is a 6-pack of Patriot beer. You can now see the liquid inside the bottles move around, and we see this a bit closer up later on in the trailer as well. But that's something that's been picked up all over the internet. That's a great thing. There's a whole stack of magazines on the right-hand side next to the ATM machine. I think some of these we can identify. There's Vain, Players, Desire, one that I think is called ETE, and then it's cut off, but it looks like there's one called Sophisticated and Starstruck. Starstruck looks very much like a Hollywood-style magazine about celebrities, that kind of thing. As he leaves the shop, there's a sign on the door that reads, "It is unlawful for any person to consume or possess in an open container any alcoholic beverage in this store or within 100 feet of this store. Violators are subject to arrest and prosecution." So don't be drinking your beers anywhere near the shop. There's a sticker for Redwood cigarettes, which are $4 a pack. They're checking ID for anyone under 30. And maybe the best sign, there's another one that reads, "All dogs must be carried or leashed." Now, think back to what I said about the Chihuahua earlier with the lady holding it. If we end up having a pet dog, or other people have pet dogs in this world, are they going to be picking them up and carrying them around to take them into shops? This would suggest yes. And there's a couple of other stickers here. One for Yukon, which is a tobacco chewing brand that appeared in GT Online as part of the Arena War update. And another one for Vapormin, which is a vape poster, which is going to be brand new for GTA 6, but they've obviously thought about how they can get that in, and Vapormin seems to be the brand. Then a woman walks past Jason, which you have noted could suggest some of the dynamic animation system at play.
Yeah, we've talked on quite a recent episode about how Rockstar keep patenting or, different animation designs. And you notice as Jason walks through, she's walking sort of quite face on to him. And at the last minute, she sort of just slightly turns to the side. Now, this could be a cutscene, and that's how it's designed to look natural. Or it could be a glimpse of this new dynamic animation system in action, where she's changing her body movement on the fly to react to the interaction with another character. If so, it's incredibly subtly done and looks great, right? So, might not be, I thought it was worth flagging.
This next scene is, after having those brewskis, he's now driving the car, which is unadvised. Do not do that. But he's driving past what is quite a dramatic scene here, and there's loads of detail in this one as well. I think this is another first-person view, but from the passenger seat side. Again, whether it's a cutscene, whether this is, let's say Jason is driving and you are Lucia, you're in first-person view and you're just watching the world go by. Unconfirmed, but that is what this camera angle is suggesting. As we go through this scene, you see more and more stuff. Now, Haiti is written here on the wall, and there's an outline, like a white outline, which at first glance just looks like nothing, but is actually the outline of Haiti, the island, which is south of Miami, east of Cuba. So actually quite a bit further away than we thought, but it's, having a prominent thing here to go, this island exists in this world. Will we be able to physically go there? Is it too far away? I don't know, but this is quite a big statement to go, Haiti exists. There's a couple of other things written on this wall in what I believe is French.
Yeah.
Liberty. I'm not going to be able to say these properly. Maybe you got a better French accent than me, Dan.
It'd be liberté, égalité, fraternité, which is liberty, equality, fraternity. These words are regarded as the most famous slogan of the French Revolution, which means that men and women are born and remain free and equal in rights. And this is one of the tenets of like French identity, essentially.
Now, this, again, has written on the wall Le Pearl, which is a neighborhood of Vice City. It's in the Vicedale County, obviously here in Leonida. There's a train car that passes that you can see silhouettes of the people on. That is the kind of level of detail that we're getting here. And as previously discussed, there is a no video without permission sign, which has another phone number, 305-555-0178. But perhaps the most interesting things is when you go a bit further along this wall, and you can see a Sans for Sans bit of graffiti on the wall.
Yeah.
Now, this suggests the presence of the San for San gang in the area. Now, in Haitan Creole, that means blood for blood. So there's a suggestion that this is the gang's tag that they are putting on the wall. Now, Creole is a French-based language, which would suggest, that French thing that you just read out, it all starts to tally up. Spoken by about 10 to 12 million people worldwide. It's one of the two official languages of Haiti, where it is the native language for the vast majority of the population. It is also widely spoken. It is also the most widely spoken Creole language in the world. As an extension to this, we have previously seen sound for sound records as a sticker on the back of a car, which is the gang's music label. So I would suggest this is going to be one of the big gangs in the game. As a real life reference, there's a gang called Zoe Pound, which is a street gang based in Miami, Florida, founded by the Haitian migrants in the 1990s. And then there's a couple of other French things written on the wall, which mean for the flag and for the homeland. So this is very much tying it all back to Haiti and the culture and the gangs, I think.
It's also worth noting that you can hear the track by Zenglen, which is Child Support. They are a sort of famous Miami-based French Haitian band. So That I listened to or tried to decipher the lyrics of Child Support to see if they meant anything. That song has a lot of lyrics, and I do mean a lot of lyrics. The broad sense of it is, I think, a father complaining because he has been separated from his child because of something the mother has. I think it sounds like he's been a bit of a baddie, and the mum's stopped him, and now he's upset because he can't see his child anymore. You know, I don't. Again, I'm not an expert on decrypting that song. I thought it was interesting because there was an element of familial discord in it, and most of the other songs, I think the songs are significant in their choices and their lyrics. Most of the other songs they're all about like almost like different stages of a relationship. Hot Together is very much we met up, you know, we were in a club, we had a crazy time, it was great. The Tammy Wynette song, like was it On My Own Again, is almost about after someone's left you and there's regret, and she's essentially pretending that everything's fine and it isn't, and there's been a split or a parting of the ways and she can't reconcile herself to it. It might mean nothing, but it could be that the choice of the songs describe different parts of a relationship, and we do know and feel trust to be the central dynamic, and the relationship with Jason and Lucia to be the central dynamic. So if you want to read into that, there's definitely that there.
And this wall in itself feels like a memorial wall about, you know, losing people. You can see there's two portraits of people at the end of this wall, and underneath one of them is written Namama Aklamo, and I'm not said that right, but someone can correct me if I have, which translates to in love and affection, which suggests, I think, this is probably a memorial wall. Maybe that ties back to why there's no video without permission, because it's got pictures of real people who have somehow lost their lives during some events. Maybe it's gang related, maybe it's not, but lots to dig into there. The next shot we see is one of a prison, and I think this might be the shortest bit of analysis we do on this scene, because that's pretty much all I've got to say about this.
Yeah, let's take the win on this one and move on.
So here we are. Jason has arrived at the prison. You can see that he's actually got some stains on his t-shirt, and on the front of his shirt it says sales and service under the logo. There's a couple of signs around this bit where he's asking basically, you know, is Lucia ready to come out yet? And the prison guard says, oh, you seem vaguely familiar. Have you been around here before? Which opens up a whole other load of questions about Jason's past and what he's doing here and that kind of thing. There's a sign that says, do not enter until instructed by an officer, which could suggest that if you do try and get into this prison without doing that, you'll trigger some kind of star rating, probably 5 stars or something like that. Yeah, I guess
that's how prisons work. You can't just walk in, can you?
And then further on in the sign, there's a green one that reads the Leonida Department of Corrections. So we know where we are. We're definitely in Leonida. We're not somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which is nice to be able to pinpoint this. And then it says prisoners are entitled to 15-minute visits throughout the week with an additional 1-hour visit every Sunday. Please call the prison information line for further details by order of the state government, which ties me right back into my theory of days of the week existing, which I think we see a number of times throughout this trailer. They're definitely going to exist, but will they exist in a way where it says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and just cycles through the dates? Let's wait and see, but I'm excited for that to happen.
Yeah, there's a reference later to months, very specifically. So, you know, there's evidence for this theory.
Skip forward to the next scene, and here she is, Lucia. The first time that we see her in trailer 2, the description of Lucia Kamanos is that Lucia's father taught her to fight as soon as she could walk. Life has been coming at her swinging ever since. Fighting for her family landed her in Leonida Penitentiary. Sheer luck got her out. Lucia learned her lesson. Only smart moves from here. Again, opens up a load of questions. How did luck get her out of prison? We see Jason picking her up. They already know each other at this point because there is a very easy, hello exchange. Like it's familiar person. So if sheer luck got her out of prison, is that evidence being misplaced, destroyed? It's not like she's this suggests it's not like she's come to the end of her term. This is something has happened to be able to release her early.
Definitely. I would, there's an interesting mirror with the language from the first trailer where her corrections officer sort of says, do you know why you're here? And she says, bad luck, I guess. And now the official bio says sheer luck got her out. So it's an inversion of luck. There's also, if you really want to get into the weeds of this, there's a number of things within the trailer that sort of speak to luck or choice or chance. Cal Hampton has dice tattooed on his neck, which I don't know if there's an official logo, but it might tie to the famous Dice Man book about someone who lives their life by chance. That might be nothing. What I would definitely pick up, again, going back to Lucia's official bio, it's super alarm bells for me that within the first 3 lines of her bio, you hear the words, father taught her to fight, coming at her swinging, fighting for her family. Like, the repetition of this sort of fighting combat stuff is significant. And actually, as we start to talk about what Lucia always wears, you can't see it in this scene, but you will in a minute, I think there's a massive tell coming up.
And further to her description, it does give us a bit more information that says, more than anything, Lucia wants the good life her mum dreamed of since their days in Liberty City. But instead of half-baked fantasies, Lucia is prepared to take matters into her own hands. Obviously, this has sparked quite a lot of debate among the community, whether, Liberty City is going to appear in GTA 6 or anything like that. It's certainly being referenced, as is, Los Santos and other Rockstar locations. Is it going to be somewhere that you do visit at some point or you see at some point during this game? I don't know. I don't think you have to. I think just the reference is probably enough. But it's interesting to see now Rockstar coming out and explicitly connecting those worlds and saying Lucia is from Liberty City and now she is in Vice City.
Yeah, I think that detail on its own is not insignificant, but perhaps not insignificant for the plot and the way it develops. I've seen threads from various GTA community sort of tipsters and analysts saying, here's proof that Liberty City will be in GTA 6. And to be honest with you, it all felt, plausible but tenuous, apart from the fact that one of the famous Liberty City community map was taken down by Rockstar, and someone was saying, look, they're clearing the decks for, Liberty City to appear in GTA 6. Maybe. And then there's another sort of rumor we've done the rounds in the last 24 hours about, and again, this is based on unverified leaks, people saying that, no, actually what they're doing is a GTA 4 remake. And that's going to be ready quite soon. And that would be a great idea. And a GTA 4 remake would be really exciting because that's quite a, inverted commas, modern game. It'd be great to see that with revamped visuals and be a great stepping path to this potentially. But I don't know if that's true or not. And again, would that be a reason alone to take down the map? I don't know. Were they related? I don't know. I just don't feel any of it's conclusive enough to say you'll definitely be in Liberty City.
No. And, let's just go down that road for one quick second. If that does become the case and they do a remastered version of GTA 4, could there be some additional things in that seeds Lucia, or at least her family, into that storyline? So if you went back and played this definitive remastered edition, there is an extra mission, secret location, some kind of hint in there that you start to meet some of Lucia's family and then get to play GTA 6 next year.
Yes, in theory, but I'm not aware of scenarios of Rockstar actually. I think if it'd be changing canon, would it be expanding on canon? Basically, I've got a lot more to say about the links between Liberty City, its lore, and Lucia's parentage, but it's probably another episode in and of itself. Something I would say is, how old do we think Lucia is? Do we definitively know what age she is?
No, and I don't think you can definitively work it out, but I'm going 20s, late-ish, mid to late 20s.
Yeah, that's what I think. I also looked at the age of Manny L. Perez, who was the rumored actor. And her bio says she can play anyone from, obviously her agent would say
All
this,
of them,
from,
any
from,
age.
from late teens to early 30s. And I think in real life, she's like early 30s. Now, Lucia, I could also believe that. Lucia for me could be anywhere from between 23 to 32-ish, that sort of bracket, right? She looks quite youthful. The reason I think that's significant is if we believe, and there's evidence for this as well, that GTA 6 is set in the present day, give or take, you have to then go back to, let's say, however old she is to when she was born. And then you can start to frame that within GTA lore and who the characters would be at that time. I'm probably not going to unpack all of that now because it's a very long conversation. But that's something we should be thinking about because then that has a big impact on how much this might tie to things we already know about. To talk about GTA 4 specifically, that game was set in 2008. Now, let's say Lucia was born during that game, which, I'm not saying she is, right? But that would mean that she's only 16, 17, and that doesn't feel right.
No,
So
she's definitely older than that.
That's what I mean. So that doesn't feel right. And then that rules out a few people who could have been her parents and probably aren't. It's for another day.
Well, let's continue her bio, though, which says, a life with Jason could be her way out. Fresh out of prison and ready to change the odds in her favor, Lucia's committed to her plan, no matter what it takes. Which is another interesting, different way of wording this. Now, it says, she got out of prison because of sheer luck. And then the description carries on to say, fresh out of prison, which suggests, she's just got out of prison at the time that we're meeting her.
Yeah.
But we definitely, I think, are going to meet her before she goes to prison. But maybe that's something we'll talk about a bit later on when we get through some more screenshots.
Yeah. And again, the repetition of we've got sheer luck gets her out. She says bad luck, I guess, in the first trailer. And then this reference to changing the odds. These are all like gambling terms. Now, whether this is just something about a character is fatalistic or driven by decisions, is there or could there be some, it's like an RPG. Characters have literally luck statistics, would imagine something like that was part of GTA. That's really going out there, right? That would be like GTA as an RPG. That's another set of conversations, but it is weird that this thing keeps coming up.
And here's the final thing to connect all the worlds together. She's wearing a t-shirt as she leaves this prison that says, I went down on the Leviathan, which is a cheeky wording as it is, but also the Leviathan is the small roller coaster that is in GTA 5 and GTA Online, of course. It's located at the end of the pier at the fairground called the Pleasure Pier in Los Santos. So now you've got Lucia growing up in Liberty City.
Yeah.
At some point going to Los Santos and riding the pier or riding the roller coaster on the pier, and now ending up in Vice City. So she is ticking off all of the locations.
Yeah, and what I'd say quickly is the Jason Schreier story going back in the day, the way he said it's a Bonnie and Clyde tale, and the game's been delayed multiple times, which has been proven to be correct, I believe also referenced the idea of GTA 6 began life as Project America's, and it was a much bigger ambition they've had to dial back. The degree of which they've dialed back, you don't know, but that's, again, for another day.
And one quick point on her t-shirt is that it looks old and faded. I would suggest likely from when she is younger, or at least it's a few years old and she's been wearing it a fair amount. Like, she likes this t-shirt. So does that put this at a time further back in, the timeline? Is this when she was a teenager and she's kept it and it still fits? Don't know, but lots to talk about on that. So this is the reverse shot now, the 20th scene in the trailer where Jason has come to meet Lucia. You can see his car in the background. I'm pretty sure that's the same car he's been driving throughout this trailer. It's the same one you can see in screenshot 2. And it's another instance where I think you can see the time on his watch. It's a slight guess, this one, but I think it's 17:08, which would be nearly 5:10 in the afternoon, which, looking at the sky in the background, sort of fits. I think this would be late late evening. So
I think it looks right.
There we go. Now we've made it into the Rockstar Games Presents text on screen, where, this is it, them saying we're presenting the thing. Not much to say about this. I think they want you to think this is the evening of after picking her up from jail. Like chronologically, that's how your brain would work. It'd go, he's driven there, he's done some stuff, he's picked her up, now they're in the hotel, getting to know each other once more.
It feels logical. The lighting makes sense. If you met her at 1708, this looks like just as it's starting to go from day to night. That all feels aligned to me. This is also where the Pointer Sisters track starts to play, and the sense of like their relationship comes into focus.
And you can see her wearing her ankle tag, which we know is going to be a prominent feature in some way. And we see it again later on in this trailer. And the room that they are in here, I think some have speculated, is this the same motel as the end of trailer 1? But actually, you can see the window here and the fan on the left-hand side, which does put this in the same building that Jason is in at the beginning of the trailer, and the one that Jason and Lucia walk into is the one with the snake tank in it.
Sure. Yeah. The fan is a giveaway.
And next, we see her entering, I'm going to say that in inverted commas, a life of crime. Now, this is a bank heist. In a minute, we see which bank it is. But Lucia here is wearing the same outfit or bandana as Raul Batista, which is in the website video. They're both wearing these skull mask bandanas. Suggest it's a coordinated thing. Not quite sure who's planned this. If it's him, is it Jason and Lucia? But the website says that he's always on the hunt for talent. And then we cut to this heist after seeing Lucia leaving jail. Is this the first one? I think that's meant to be the way you're meant to think about this. However, there is an ex-GTA developer who has been doing a reaction to trailer 2, as I think a lot of them have been. At this point, when he is watching the trailer, he instantly says the words, "Oh, flashback."
All right, okay. Flashback?
The new beginnings.
So, yeah, presumably that's some sort of flashback to what got her in the slammer in the first place.
Which is, I think, very strange to just throw that out there as a throwaway comment, unless it has some kind of meaning. Or I'm reading too much into this. I'm sure he will let me know. His name is David. He's got the YouTube channel Game World Art. He was an environment artist at Rockstar who left in 2023. He worked on GTA 5, Red Dead 2, and GTA 6. He says that he's worked outside of the city as an environment artist, so he was focusing on things like the countryside and naturalistic landforms, which I think in normal speak is hills and mountains, and maybe canyons and that kind of thing, but it's that kind of stuff. He sort of doubles down on this a bit further into his analysis, because originally he says like, oh, right, okay, when he sees her with the gun, and then he says flashback, which you could interpret as a question, where he's just reacting to it as normal and going, oh, is that a flashback?
Yeah.
But then later on in the analysis, he says, oh, presumably that's some sort of flashback to what got her in the slammer in the first place. Now, this opens up quite a lot of questions for me, because I, as a fan, didn't assume that when I first saw this. I thought this was part of the story and it was just going to be them doing a heist at some point. But to suggest that this might be a flashback, we'd have to work out where that's going to queue up in the story. Like, I can't see Rockstar doing the like heist gone wrong setup again for the opening of this game.
No.
So, what gets Lucia in jail?
For me, there's a number of things that don't line up. First, I guess first of all, that what I agree with, this scene feels the most out of time. But does it feel out of time flashback, it's happened before, or it's much later in the game? That's the question mark. Now, applying logic to this, if, as this scene suggests, Lucia had been part of an armed robbery on a major bank, holding a weapon, that doesn't feel like luck, fiddle-dee-dee, and now you're out on parole to me. That feels it's a really significant crime, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to let you out for something like that. And then it also wouldn't make sense if she'd committed a crime on this scale to then be, like we've seen in other scenes, her and Jason robbing corner stores. That feels really small time. And it doesn't sort of, for someone who's done something on this level to sort of go, oh, and now we're going to rob the corner shop. It feels weird to me. It doesn't feel right. There's no natural ramp up there. It makes much more sense in traditional chronology to go from the small crimes to the bigger crimes.
Yeah.
And at some stage meet someone like Raul Batista, who gets them into a world that's, taking them out of their comfort zone and things go wrong. And they're the first words on the GTA 6 website where they're talking about like a sort of a score that's gone wrong and taking them to the dark side of a criminal conspiracy in the darker side of the Sunny Estate. That makes more sense. So if this was like the start of the game, I don't think it works. For me, it doesn't work. Even though there's going to be something, right? There is something we're missing in terms of why she's in prison. Do I think it's this? I don't think it makes sense.
Yeah, because it doesn't really work. Like, let's pretend the game starts with how this trailer starts. You're doing some odd jobs around. You never meet Lucia until she gets out. And then some of that beginning bit of meeting Lucia is them talking about how she ended up in prison. And you get to go back and play that section of her life that got her there. Like, as you say, this is a big thing. And I think it's also a thing that happens within Leonida. So I don't know if that fits with her, the timeline of her going from what appears to be city to city to end up here and then end up in jail somehow.
And Jason's in this bank heist scene. So it doesn't make sense. How would they both have been let out after committing what looks like a really severe...
Unless Jason's a cop.
Well, sure, unless he's a cop. But then, I don't know. Surely she would have questions of, hang on, we did this really severe armed crime together, and now you're out, and so am I.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. So something isn't right in the chronology. I think we're right to say that this scene feels outside of time, but where I think there's a more logical flow the other way. It's forward in time than back. I could be wrong, but it just doesn't quite tally up for me. On Raul Batista, I would note again, his official bio is full of things about risks. Talks about ready to take the risks that bring the biggest rewards. He talks about, what else does he say? He says they have to double down or pull their chips away from the table. Like there's all this sense of luck, fate, circumstance running through all of the bio descriptions.
The next scene in the trailer sequence is Lucia continuing to rob this bank. We get to see that it is the Sin Frontera National Bank. There is a security lockdown in effect on the computer screens. There's also some hand sanitizer on the desk here, which could suggest COVID is going to be a talking point in GTA 6 at some point, or these people have just got hand sanitizer on the desk because they meet a lot of people in the day. Who knows? But yeah, this is a little hint possibly towards something like that. The next clip is one of Jason tackling a security guard. Now, we have written here that this could be a glimpse at the new hand-to-hand combat mechanics. And there's a suggestion that Jason and Lucia might have different styles in the way that they use these combat mechanics, or at least, end up hitting people in different ways or using different techniques or stances. Later on, we see Lucia training as more of a cage fighter type thing. Is Jason trained in that way? Obviously, he was trained army, so they might have different approaches. Not quite sure yet. You can also see here, though, that it's light outside. So even though the bank is covered in red lights because they've triggered an alarm, this heist is taking place during the day again, which I think we see later on in one of the video clips from the website. You can see them leaving the bank with bags full of money.
Yeah, where it looks very heaty.
Yes.
The movie heat, that is.
Yeah, not just hot.
Yeah.
Even though it does also look hot.
It's very heaty today. Between that and my pronunciation of Haiti, I'm in a lot of trouble.
The next one is who we think or are led to believe is Jason and Lucia. Again, is this at the end of the scene of the one that starts at the end of trailer 1? There's a lot of ends going on there. Who knows? It's potentially Jason and Leah. Jason and Lucia in bed together, which takes us to them having a lovely drink outside. Now, the bar in the background here, I think we can identify as the Rusty Anchor. What they're doing here, what kind of stage in the relationship they're at this point is up for debate. But there's also a couple of new beer brands here, right, Dan?
Yeah, and I've actually pulled some of these out because you see more beer brands when you go inside the bar. But the ones you can see here is Pinned IO, which is a pun for pendajo. I might be getting that wrong, but it's like slang for a stupid person, but more literally pubic hair. So that's very rock star. And it's kind of a Modelo style beer, you know, the kind of light beers when you put a little bit of lime in or lemon parody, and it's got the gold wrapping. Jason's
also wearing a floral shirt, which could be a little hint to the Tommy Vercetti days from Vice City. And there's also a banner behind them which shows a selection of the different type of beers, which I think we'll get onto in a second. Quick close-up of them cheersing each other with the beers. Again, you can see that the liquid inside the bottles moves around as they connect the two together.
There's a significant detail here which is possible to miss. It's one of our first close-up glimpses of Lucia's necklace. Lucia wears in almost every single scene a boxing glove necklace. Let's refer back to those very first words used to describe her on the bio. Like her father taught her how to fight since she was born, right? She's wearing this boxing glove all the way through. Now, to me, that says it's a family connection. It's an heirloom. Why else would she wear it all of the time? There's only one scene where you don't see it, and that's basically the really big bank heist where it's covered.
Yeah.
She's wearing like a turtleneck style clothing. So for me, big tell in that necklace, big tell to the importance of her heritage. Again, it's another discussion about who that might be and where that might link, but you've got to say that's significant.
The next shot, we've zoomed out a bit, but have changed location slightly. Jason and Lucia are wearing the same clothes. The beers have now disappeared. The building in the background, I'm pretty sure, is the same bar that they're at. And it's a bar that, as you mentioned, we see inside of later on in this trailer. The boat in front of them is a Lure Predator, which is new to GTA 6. The engine on the back is a Dinka 300 V6, and underneath reads 4-stroke fuel injection. Dinka, of course, is a fake Japanese brand of vehicles that was introduced in GTA 5. There's a suggestion here that the phone mast or the tower that you can see in the background could be a cell phone mast that is in the top left of the screenshot here. And is this going to play a significant part in a Strangers and Freaks style mission about 5G conspiracy theories, that kind of thing? There's also something that I can get on board with, which I'm sure you're going to hate, Dan, which is a suggestion that the game could have real-time signal coverage as a feature in the game. So, for example, you move away from the cell phone tower, you lose signal, or if you're out in the sea or the wilderness, you don't have any signal, so you can't use your phone in the same way that you would do it as if you were in the city. I think that would be incredible. It's the kind of thing I think you'll hate.
Yeah, I think it's incredible for a couple of pocket missions where it only happens then, and it creates a good reason that the gameplay goes a certain way. If your Wi-Fi signal in the game was consistently dropping out, that's insanity. They may as well give every single app you use in the game a separate password like real life, and then when you go to ring someone up, you get an AI automated machine. Let's make GTA 6 as utterly aggravating as real life. No, let's not do that. So Yes, for 1 or 2 missions, fine. Otherwise, absolutely forbidden.
Well, we will file phone coverage under car refueling.
It's worse than car refueling.
Okay, and see how many of these
and I feel
things.
very bad about car refueling.
Okay, well, let's go to somewhere a bit more tranquil. The next shot is them sitting in the same place, but this is from behind them rather than the shot before that was in front of them. The boat is still there. You can see it in the bottom right-hand side. You can see some people in the distance, I think, partying on the boats. I think they're just having some kind of, gathering further out at sea. There is another angle of the screenshot with an inflatable crocodile. Is this the same boat? I think it's at a different time of day, so it probably doesn't match up.
Yeah.
But I think here we're looking out possibly onto the Everglades, but if anyone knows any differently, let us know. And here we are at Brian's Boatworks and Marina. Now this has a phone number underneath, 786-555-0109. We'll get into whether this is a cover for his drug running opportunities in a second.
Yep.
Now, 786 in real life is a number that serves large parts of southern Florida, including the cities of Miami, Homestead, and more, as well as serving the Miami-Dade County. This area code is also used in Monroe. Now, Monroe is the southernmost county of the state of Florida. It includes the islands of the Florida Keys, so it's really south. And it could suggest that Brian's Marina is a sign that we see in screenshot 1. It's really hard to work it out. You can read the words Marina, but I'm not sure whether it says Brian's, but that would put all of this, Florida Keys, it would tie all of those things together. So it sort of lines up. This is, of course, Brian Heeder's business. It's Brian's Boatworks and Marina, boat repairs, equipment, and storage. In the back of this shot, you can see a sign that says Rollocks Outboards. Now, people who probably aren't from the UK, this could be a suggestion that it's a play on bollocks, which is a slang term for testicles.
Yeah, it means like
UK.
something is rubbish, or
Yeah.
you go, oh, that's a load of bollocks. Like, it's just not true. Not a phrase to use in front of your elderly parents. So, yeah.
And calling them Rollocks Outboards, which is a reference to the motors, I suggest, could, maybe they're not as high end as some of the other things that you can get in the game. What we can see, though, is them loading up a seaplane during the night. Now, it's a seaplane, so could this suggest that this is a delivery to somewhere in Leonida with other big stretches of water, or just somewhere that's by a river? Like, it's going to have to be somewhere that this plane can land. So we're not talking about the middle of the map, but as we suspect, there is a giant lake in the middle of the map, so it could be going somewhere there.
Yeah,
like
and we do know that Brian is like the classic Keys drug smuggler. It makes sense. He does a lot of his business, inverted commas, with these kinds of planes in this area. So this looks like to me the nuts and bolts of what he actually does, like his real job.
And further off in the background, you can also see a Nagasaki flag hanging on the wall. This is quite a diverse portfolio for the company, but primarily they're known for high-performance motorbikes and ATVs, as well as producing specialized boats and helicopters. So they're obviously using some of that kit to fix some of these boats and or planes. We can see Brian in this shot, right? And who we think is Carl Hampton and Jason.
Yeah, so Brian is the character whose back is, he's got his back to us. He's on the left middle. Now, I wasn't sure if this was Jason and Cal until the next screen actually shows them close up, and it's pretty clearly Cal and Jason, who we know both work for Brian.
Yeah.
So it all tallies up. What we don't know is there's another figure in this scene who we see getting like off the plane, and we see their boots, but we don't know who that is, and I haven't done enough analysis to sort of match the shoes to the person, but there is another figure who's not clearly identified in this scene.
Yeah, and as you say, the guy opposite Jason, also wearing a Rusty Anchor t-shirt, connects them back to the bar, all ties up very nicely. Now here, in scene 32, we see Lucia doing some of her, what we think is community service, which would be attached to her ankle tag. So she has to do some of these things because I assume she's been released early from prison, but she's still going to have to repay some of the things that she did. And this is one of the things that she's doing. We see her later on wearing this jacket coming home to Jason in the trailer. But for now, this is her doing some of that. Will you have to do some of this yourself in-game as an activity? I'm going to think maybe you do. And it's something that we talked about many episodes ago, that perhaps you are going to have to do menial jobs as Lucia, going around, doing stuff with your 9 to 5 before you get to do other things and have fun. Like, this suggests that might be going that way.
If they did do some of that, it would make you feel the pain of doing menial work, which I think is true. And I think the point of all of this is setting up that her life in parole and post-prison is a bit bullshit. And it would suggest that why she might be tempted to get into something a bit more lucrative and risky. I think that's what it's all about. It's just setting up the fact that it's a tough life, right? So I think that would be a trigger for them to do something a little bit more dangerous and risky. A couple of other quick things to note in this scene. If you zoom in, she's actually wearing a Brian's Boatworks and Marina hat. So that's, we saw Brian's Boatworks just in the frame earlier. She's wearing the hat now. This scene's actually a lighting showcase, and you only notice it when you go frame by frame. But Lucia goes from being completely in shadow to being fully lit up by the tail lights of the car that goes past. So, again, an easy detail to miss, but when you see tap, 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 you almost see her bisected by the light as it moves past in real time. That's really impressive.
And now we have returned home. Now, this is the same house as it is in the beginning of the trailer. You can see the snake tank here in full view. Previously, we only got to see it in some dim lighting. There's a wooden key rack just by the door, which is the same one that you can see from the beginning of the trailer. But now you have noted, Dan, that there is a picture frame on the wall, which isn't there in the original shot.
Yeah, so when Jason's fixing up the house at the start, you see the key rack, but not the picture. That's a very classic thing of a man having something practical on display in his house. A woman's touch is a beautiful picture. So I think this suggests that time has moved on. Lucia has moved in with him, and she's put a more decorative touch on the home. So yeah, this would definitely say that this is afterwards.
Again, as you've noted previously, you can see her wearing the boxing glove necklace that we see throughout the trailer. And now we get to see Carl Hampton shouting, "Ring the bells," which I don't know what that suggests. Everyone gets free drinks, maybe? That's what I'm going in here.
Yeah, it looks like a happy hour style. Ring the bells, let's go. He does say afterwards, shots. So, it must be, it's time to drink, y'all.
Now, his description on the website is, "What if everything on the internet was true?" Which probably tells you everything you need to know about Carl, I think. He's Jason's friend and fellow associate of Brian's. Carl feels safest hanging at home, snooping on Coast Guard comms with a few beers and some private browser tabs open. Cal is a walking Strangers and Freaks main menu. That's not on the website, Dan. That's something you've written.
That's something I've written. I initially saw Cal Hampton as one of the characters and went, yeah, almost like, yeah, who cares? He's got a goofy best friend. It'll be a complete nothing side character. And there's no need to pay any attention to this character. How wrong was I? Because,
Very.
Yeah, when you start to look, basically, not just in what we see in the trailer, but particularly from the screenshots and artwork, Cal's body is decorated in tattoos. We know for a fact he's a conspiracy theorist, right? I think there's a very, very easy line to draw between the type of tattoos he has and what I assume will be the types of Strangers and Freaks missions we're going to get in this game. I think he's like a walking clue. And there's also things in there, like at minimum, that are really cute throwbacks to things that have previously been in other games. Now, the biggest punch from Cal Hampton is there's a piece of artwork where he sat down drinking a bottle of the beer. He's got like a bridge in the background. When you zoom in on his right lower leg, I'm sure this is Piggsy from Manhunt.
Oof. Prepare to explode the internet.
So we can put that on screen, and you need to do a bit of side by side. But Piggsy is sort of the insane serial killer figure from Manhunt. He's also alluded to in other games in mythology terms. At minimum, this is Rockstar nodding to themselves. It's such an easy detail to miss, but I am convinced this is who it is. Now, he's obviously got a lot of other tattoos, and some of them are easier to make out than others. A really clear one on his right arm, he's got like a big fish that's sort of cut into pieces and labelled. The labels are back meat, best meat, tail meat, and nah, which is basically like the proper arse end of the fish, you know, the really bad bit. On his left arm, you can see the words, do not resuscitate. And then there's like a female character, and I'm not 100% on this actually, who I initially got very excited about being like a mermaid in design, but I'm not entirely sure. Oh, just showing James and then putting my monitor the wrong way around so we can't see it. Is that? Now, that might just be a woman. Like, that could be like a dress. Or is that...
Yeah, it looks like a dress to me, unfortunately.
That is a bit weird though, isn't it? Like,
it's sort of like pin-up girl style drawing. I'd love to think that this was a mermaid and we're going to get them confirmed, but maybe not quite.
I'm also, having looked at different angles, a bit less sure, because there's on different parts of the trailer you can't see it all, but then there's a bit where you can zoom in and that's less compelling. However, higher up on the same arm, this initially I couldn't make out at all, but if you sort of brighten it up and look a bit more carefully, you can see a alien and his arm, and he's removing a human flesh mask. Now it plays to the conspiracy of, you know, they walk among us, and the aliens, you know, they're people too. It's you know, insert your favorite former president or whatever it is. Now, aliens have long been affiliated to GTA. We talked about the Chiliad mystery, the UFOs. This might just be a nod to aliens. Aliens are the biggest, you know, conspiracy theory of all. I think it's interesting that that will be nodded to on his arm. Now, this is another piece of tattoo art I think is quite significant. I think in his left leg, there's like a standalone tattoo of some vampire teeth. They look like vampire teeth. And above that, a character who's got like he's got like a big round head and bulbous eyes, and he's smoking a cigarette. And there's like a diamond-shaped logo on his head. Now, this isn't an exact match, but it's incredibly close. He looks like a vampire called Count Orlok, who's played by Max Schreck in the original Nosferatu films going back to like the 20s or something. It's a long time ago. But Count Orlok is also part of GTA mythology, because there is apparently a grave in Liberty City that references Count Orlok. And that was the first reference ever to vampires in the GTA series. So at minimum, a cute nod. You know, imagine hunting vampires by night in GTA. That would be some next level super fun stuff.
Which all leads us onto the next scene, which is them in a bar. Now, there's a few interesting things to point out here. The sign behind the bar, where the bell is, says Hurricane Roxy was this strong, and it's a load of ripped up boards, which suggests that the hurricane came along and ripped all of these boards up. Is this a hint towards the extreme weather conditions that we think we might be seeing? Is a hurricane going to appear in the game? Has it already appeared and there is some bits that are still damaged from it and get repaired throughout the game? Who knows? But this is a big hint towards some of those extreme weather things happening. There are number plates above where Jason and Lucia are for Leonida, but also for Gloriana, which appears to border the state of Leonida. And the theory is that it's likely bordering the national park, which is located along the northern border. It's based on the US state of Georgia. So geographically, you can place that and, you know, do some map segregation and work out if they moved it down a bit, would it all work? I think it does. So there's a suggestion that there's another state around. Maybe not, maybe you can't go to it, but it definitely is going to be referenced in the same way that obviously Liberty City is going to be referenced, and Los Santos, because there's number plates from those places later on in the trailer as well. There is a TV on the wall that is showing adverts. You can pause it at the right point and find out that there's a prairie sandwich box meal, which is only, Dan, 30,000 calories.
Oof, blimey.
Obviously, it's a parody on, the giant burgers that we're getting and the fast food chains and things. This is, you can see a picture of a giant burger, which looks actually like one burger patty and then just rolls and rolls of like meat under it. So like, bacon and ham and that kind of stuff. So it's and it also has a sort of Mexican hat on, which is fun. There is a few other beer flags on top, some of which you've covered already, Dan, but there's a couple of new ones in here.
Yeah, so we've got Piss Vaso, which is the GTA
classic.
The tagline's "You're in for a good time." This is kind of like the Budweiser, but actually more like Bavarian-style beer, like a Grolsch or a Polaner. We've got Patriot, which is sort of acknowledged to be more like Samuel Adams or what's called Pabst Blue Ribbon. Stronzo, which is Italian beer. It's like a sort of Nastro Azzurro Peroni. Then we've got like we talked about, the Pindayo Cerveza, more of the Mexican Modelo beer. They're not necessarily like new beers, but it's good to see them still in the universe.
And then if we move through into the next scene, you can see Lucia pulling Jason away to what I assume is her going, "Come on, let's dance." And he's like, "I don't really want to dance. It's the middle of the day. What are we doing?" But off they go. There's a poster on the wall here for the Hummers and the Strummers, which we talked about previously. This has an exact date.
Yeah, it says Aug 24, which, unless I'm reading that wrong, would say August 2024 or 24th
24th of August I was going for.
Yeah, that annoys me more because then that ruins the year theory.
Right.
But, and you're right, and written in US date terminology, that would make more sense to say it's 24th of August and to sit outside of time, which buys them an out. But still, it does say that, 7 p.m. to late at the Rusty Anchor. We talked about the Rusty Anchor a lot. And it's a little cute thing. It goes, "Music to make you cry." And there's two other words I literally couldn't make out because they got too fudgy.
And then, there's some really nice hair physics going on here, which we can see Lucia's hair bouncing.
Yeah, I just wanted to flag it quickly to say this was pulled out by the Digital Foundry Tech Analysis. They were really raving about how good the hair is in GTA 6. So what they suggested was GTA uses what's called a strand-based hair system rather than a traditional card-based system. It basically means it looks really natural, especially for curly hairstyles. So we see some of the different characters in the game have got really big curly hair. It also says that actually later in the trailer, there's times when it de-optimizes the rendering for hair, i.e. Jason's, because his hair is a bit boring, truthfully. And that's a way that the game might do some technical trade-offs to keep it looking really good.
Moving through, and we get to see Lucia on a boat. Now, she's wearing the same dress here, we think, as we see in trailer 1. I'm pretty sure those things match up. Lucia has her hair up in that picture when she's in the car, and here it is down and flowing, which I didn't read into too much, Dan, but you actually corrected me and said this puts it in a different timeline of events.
Yeah, well, I would say, and this is based on my own experiences with my wife and various, things.
Not your
I don't talk
flowing
about
hair.
my wife anymore. No, but like when people are going out for a night out, they'll do their hair. They'll blow dry their hair, and that's often their hair is down. Like it's nice. It's, they've blown it right to make it look really good. And then after the night has gone on and your hair's got a bit straggly and it's a bit of a mess, you tie it up. Because then, it's just hard to make it look as good. And tying it up is a really good little trick to, make it look decent without it being the same way. So I think that then hints at the chronology of what looks like a day to night sequence of Lucia. Actually, I would say letting her hair down, even though it's eventually tying it up.
Lol.
She's letting it down to eventually tie it up. But then it ties a lot of what we see in trailer 2 to what we see in trailer 1, where she's in the car in the convertible with her arms up in the air waving. And at that point, she has got her hair tied up, which I think that means it's much later in the evening that we see starting with her entering the boat.
So yeah, this would put her boat first, then 919 nightclub, then in the car that we see in trailer 1 driving back. The next scene is a continuation of the boat scene. Now this boat, interestingly, we can see here isn't moving, so it's docked somewhere. Could it be the same location that we see later on in the trailer when Jason and Lucia are riding the Sea Shark jet skis around? Possibly. Like, that seems to be a kind of thing that you would do on these type of boats. Have a few drinks, get the jet skis out, drive around the bay for a bit, come back. It would ruin her hair doing that. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work out in your theory, but let's see. The next scene is something completely different. Like, they're not in any of those locations. And in fact, this is in Port Gellhorn. We can see a Delight billboard sign in the background, which Delights is a club that you can see in a separate screenshot, handily, that Rockstar placed in the Port Gellhorn folder. So we can make that connection and go, this is where they are sitting. They are sitting somewhere in that area. And you can also see a couple of bikers in the background, which are very synonymous with the Port Gellhorn area, which we will definitely go into on a later show. We're going to, dissect all of the different locations that we have seen. And then we get this scene, which I wrote we're supposed to believe is Jason and Lucia, not in a way that I think it isn't them, but it's just interesting that you don't see them, but your brain instantly goes, oh, it's a man and a woman. It's Jason and Lucia. It could be somebody else, but as you've pointed out, Dan, his watch looks pretty much the same.
It does look the same. He's got like a watch with a black strap and like a silver frame. You can just about make that out. It's not like a really unique watch, so it could be someone else, but I think it's them. It would make sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. There is a sign in between their hands, or at least some letters, that seem to spell out a word that I can't quite work out. There's definitely a VI and a TOR on there, which just instantly led me to victory, but I don't know where that would be in the world or why it would be placed on what looks like a highway road. It doesn't look like it's an entrance to anywhere. I thought, if it's an entrance to a port, it could say something on there, but I don't know. If you've got any suggestions to what that could say, please let us know in the comments. We are at scene 41. This is the scene. It is Jason and Lucia entering, I assume, the 919 nightclub in Vice City. This is the same nightclub that you can see being advertised in trailer 1 when the plane flies across the screen and it's got the banner that says, why 69 when you can 919? Very good bit of advertising there. Key points here is Lucia has the same dress on as she did on the boat, and as we have also seen in trailer 1 and various other screenshots. So you can make the assumption that this is from the same night, or at least from the same mission sequence, I guess. And while we're talking about screenshots, there is one of Lucia where we get to see the back of the GTA 6 edition of the iFruit phone. Now, the iFruit phone does feature in a number of other screenshots and clips, and you can actually see the front of it. We will probably go into that whole thing in more detail in a later episode. One amazing thing, as we've talked about all the little details so far, is just the number of people in the background of this shot and how many different outfits and looks and styles we've got going on. Like, there's so much variety here in what I'm going to guess is, an in-game club sequence. So it's really great to see all of that different variety.
All I would note with this scene, and I guess all of these scenes with her wearing the dress, is there's a real sense of liberation, escape, her wanting to party. She seems really excited about all of this. In fact, almost like she's leading it and pulling Jason through. And it's interesting that Rockstar have given us so much of this day, from day to night, and what we talked about in the last episode was possibly beyond, when they're in the car and her hair is tied up. I wonder if that's just because either this is early in the game and actually it's not as significant as we think, or it's really significant and there's a reason they're showing us so much of it. And it actually ties quite neatly to the key song from trailer 2, the Hot Together song, the sense of being at the same party. The first time you kissed me, you asked me to dance. All of this feels very neatly bound together.
Yeah, and as we said in last week's episode, what we're seeing here is quite a lot of the same sequence, whereas the trailer feels like it's showing us a lot, but actually we're seeing a very microscopic part of the game, we think, here. not just here, but in the entire trailer. So the world is going to be massive, but what we're actually seeing is, as we said, maybe 2, 3, 4 different sequences throughout the game. And are they early? Are they late? To be discussed.
Yeah.
But in the next scene that we've got here is a continuation of that night. Jason and Lucia are dancing, same outfits. Lucia has her necklace on, which we covered in last week's show. So it's just a sense that they're out, they're having a good time.
Remarkable visuals. It's worth noting, like the quality and the multiplicity, there's a ridiculous word, of lighting effects. You've got like the neon swirl, you've got the spotlights, you've got all of that like reflecting off a bejeweled outfit she's wearing. Like technically it's outrageous. And possibly the most outrageous thing actually is the quality of the hair physics. She's got like lightly tousled hair, the way it sweeps and swirls. And this is talked about last week. We talked about Digital Foundry did an analysis and called this like the strand-based system of hair, which not probably there's a big debate on Digital Foundry about could Xbox Series S even handle the processing required to deliver the strand system. And they were saying actually they don't think it can. So they were saying that, the hair physics might be worse in the Series S version through necessity. All of that is to come, but just to say that this scene is actually more of a technical marvel than perhaps we realise.
Now, as we move on to this next scene, gonna go off on a little bit of a tangent. Obviously, as you just mentioned, there are some nice lighting features in this scene going on as well. But the interesting thing for me is if you really, really zoom in and ignore all of the people in the foreground, in the background, one of the DVD boxes is for what looks to be the accountant. Now, there was an advertisement in GTA 5 on CNT for a show called The Accountant. So that seems to be a reference to that kind of thing. And if we're talking about callbacks to GTA 5, then there is a reference to Michael's movie Meltdown in one of the website clips, which is really fascinating to see. There's a 1 second-ish clip on the website of Jason on his own robbing a store. And on the shelf in the background, amongst a whole load of other DVDs, is what looks like the box art for Michael's movie Meltdown. So does this suggest that Michael is still making films, or is it at least still relevant in the GTA 6 timeline? Or is it a nice Easter egg or one of those nods to say, this happened 13 years ago. Now it's on a bargain bin shelf on the DVD rack, which would make sense for kind of Michael's films, I guess.
Yeah, no idea, but I love the observation and the detail. I think the sense of us very clearly being in a shared universe is there, and there's multiple occasions where that happens. I was just looking up the Accountant TV show as you were talking. I instantly thought of the movie The Accountant. This is like an all-action film. This is not that.
No.
The Accountant in this universe actually looks more like Mad Men. And it talks about it being, the tagline for the show is life in the tax lane. And it says, there's like a thing that describes what's in the show. And it says, this week's episode is misogyny, domestic violence, booze, and banging secretaries. # I love the 50s. That's, for people who haven't seen it, that's just Mad Men. So, yeah, it's cute that this is all bound into the universe. I don't know beyond that. Does it definitely mean Michael's coming back? We'll have to see.
There's also a couple of little bits of attention to detail here. There's a very similar circular burn pattern across the light switches in this scene. Now, that could be, there's 2 light switches. It could be that they're just using the same texture, or there is something specific going on with this setup that is causing that to happen. I haven't done enough research to work out which way round that might be, but it's a very great little touch there.
Yeah, I don't know. And again, it's something that needs a bit more digging. One thing I would say about the scene that we can't see but we could hear, this is where we get these guys questioning, like, is this full of fed or whatever the exact wording is.
This full of fed? This full of fed?
I don't know what provokes that, apart from the fact that I guess he looks quite clean-shaven and lovely, whether it's what we talked about on the previous episode, something to do with his military tattoos, or something we haven't seen outside of this scene. But once again, we're seeing his allegiance is questioned.
there's very much a sense throughout the community, at least, that there's strong Fast and Furious 1 vibes going on here. If you haven't seen Fast and Furious 1, spoilers. It follows Paul Walker, who plays Brian O'Connor, and Michelle Rodriguez, who plays Letty. Paul Walker, or Brian O'Connor, is a cop, but he befriends somebody, and then there's a whole trust dynamic going on about, you know, are you out of the game? Are you in the game? Are you just doing this because, you know, for your love of cars or for your love of me? There's a whole load of relationships going on, which is very similar to what we expect sort of the story to be here. Like, okay, you joined the program as a cop, but actually you ended up falling in love with the woman, and then where do your allegiances lie at the end of the day? They ended up making 10 films about that, so I can I think you can imagine where his allegiances actually ultimately went, and it was not back to the police force.
No, I get that, and it just all goes back to trust, doesn't it? Let's see. There's clearly something up, or they want us to think something is up.
In this next scene, we can see these 3 guys who are clearly head up about something, I would imagine, on their way out of the building. The bit that I wanted to point out in this bit is there's a notice board in the background, and there's some really nice details on the notice board. One of which says, "Please return my bike." And then it has a description, "Grey BMX bike with a lightning bolt sticker. If you stole it from my apartment block last week, please return it. Somebody stole my car, and this is the only way I can get around now. I need it for job interviews. Please call 780-555-0134. On its own, this is just a nice bit of environmental storytelling that, you know, things are happening, there's crime going on in the world. But wouldn't it be lovely if this world building was some part of the side mission structure? So if you were in this building and you saw this poster, you could then go and find that bike out in the world that has been identified, grey bike, lightning bolt sticker. You could then ring that number on your iFruit phone and return it to the person in this apartment block as a kind of like secret side quest, but it actually does all work. I think that kind of thing would be incredible. Really, probably quite difficult to pull off, but I think it would be great.
I think it's the sort of thing you only have to get right in patches, so that if you did it and then later on you saw the person with the bike that you'd returned, it will create the illusion that everything is persistent, even if really they've set up 3 or 4 key moments that do it. I think that would be a really clever way to do it. And before we leave this scene, the only other thing worth noting is there's a poster. It's quite easy to see. It says La Pearl Caribbean Market. It's dated. I struggled a little bit to make out the wording, and I briefly got excited that it said Tuesday the 26th, and I thought, oh wow, that's an Easter egg to the release date in 2026.
On launch day?
Unfortunately, no. I think it says Thursday 26th to Saturday 28th. So I think but that would tie into this theory we keep propagating of, are they dynamic time events in the game? This is like a 2 to 3 day event, like markets are, right? So it's whether that actually takes place over 2 to 3 days, then gets packed up and goes away or not. Could just be a poster. Either way, interesting detail.
And now we have Lucia, what looks to be escaping an apartment complex helped down by Jason. Now they are wearing the same outfits here as they were in a previous screenshot, scene 36, if you're keeping up. Which was in the Rusty Anchor. It looks like they're wearing the same outfits. Possibly even another one a bit later on in this trailer that you can see could be wearing the same stuff there. This looks, definitely is a different, let's call it a safe house, than we have previously seen Jason and Lucia hanging out in. This isn't the one that Jason's doing up. Obviously, this is in an apartment complex or some kind of high-rise building. And in the next scene, we can actually see Lucia being dropped from this window down a couple of stories. So it's definitely a different location. I would question whether some of the later scenes that we see when her and Jason are in another bedroom setting, whether that bedroom setting is within this building and they get disturbed at some point and then have to very quickly leave because of the presence of this police helicopter you can see above. But all of that is speculation on my part.
As you say it, I had what I would describe as a micro thunderbolt in terms of the plotting, because if this relates to thinking about the outfits, and I might not be standing this up right in my mind, talking about there's the scene at the end of trailer 1 where it's the trust scene, right? And I'm just trying to remember, I think Lucia is on top of Jason in that scene, right? When they say it. In the scene we get, which we'll get onto later on, it's a flip where Jason is on top of Lucia. Now, allegorically, I can't even say that, metaphorically, let's say, that is to say he is literally and metaphorically on top, right? Could it be that there's an inversion in the dynamic where Lucia is the one taking the lead and then Jason is the one in control later on, for example? And if that was the case, and it was all part of the same scene, is the police helicopter turning up at the hideout an accident? Or could it be a moment that he sold her out? Or someone's... Now, that could be totally off base. And I might be, in my mind, the Thunderbolt might have actually clouded my optics for what this scene actually is. But that would be really interesting if true, because there would be a visual tell on, who's on top in that relationship, and then it possibly leading to, Jason being outed and them having to flee from the police chopper. That might be wrong. And we'll look at that in more detail as we go into the plot, the characters, the chronology in further episodes. But as you say it was like a mini light went on.
Which has also inspired a mini light in my brain.
Oh my God.
Which would be later on in this sequence of shots, we see the police inside a slightly run down apartment complex, clearly looking for somebody. Now I'm thinking that because of the way that all of the scenes in this trailer are interconnected and from what we believe to be a small section of a number of missions, is them raiding that apartment complex, is this the outcome of it? They hear them smashing down doors and looking for people. They escape out the back. The police helicopter is already there. It's now, in my mind, all starting to join up as it being from pretty much the same sequence of events.
The only spanner I'm going to throw in not like in my works and your works, all of our works, is, and this is purely to do with the outfits. As we move on to I think it's the next screen where we see her land on the floor and you see the keep clear and all the debris. The top she is wearing looks like the top she is wearing in the Rusty Anchor, the bar, but the difference is that's got a zip detail on the back, and this one doesn't seem to have that. Now, whether that's an internal inconsistency or she has a number of crop tops that are almost but not quite the same, I don't know. And actually, whether that's true or not, it doesn't make what we've just said not true or not. It's just that the scene might not be as thoroughly connected as we think. But I think you're onto something. I think there is a clear chronology of events being told here, but in a fractured way. This was something that Hideo Kojima used to do brilliantly with his trailers. He would basically tell you the plot, but you didn't have the lens to understand it because the chronology was off and the context was off. So I feel like there's something going on there, and maybe we need to go away and unpick that in detail.
So let's jump forward then to the next scene where Jason is talking to Brian here. Brian has a Kenny Brewster t-shirt on, which could be a reference to Kenny Rogers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of making that up, but like Kenny Rogers, the country and western singer, and famously of the Kenny Rogers Roasters, which I'm sure many people will... Yeah. Well, famously for a certain people. I think that might be a fun throwaway reference to that. Maybe not. We'll see. On his t-shirt, which is really faded, and you can actually see the cracking in the print, it looks a little bit like it's sort of embellished on top of a map, but it's really hard to make out. Now, I initially went, oh, look, it's like there's sea to the north. Is it the North Coast? Probably not. It might be like more like the north of a different part, like maybe of the Keys or something. So not too much to read into that, really, but I thought it was a cute detail on the t-shirt.
Yeah, and the only thing extra in here is what we covered last week and have covered before. The woman in the background, we believe, is Laurie, which is Brian's wife. We have seen her in a number of other shots and a few other screenshots. So she always seems to be there hanging around in the background.
Yeah, and as we said, Laurie looks like she can handle herself. She got the gun in a previous scene. The tool bench in itself isn't that remarkable. There's no tools that made me go, I've never seen that tool before. But the fact that there is like an active tool bench, are they things you can use in the game? I don't know.
So these next few shots, the next two at least, is from what we were just talking about. Now this, I believe, is the raid on a building very much like the one we just saw Jason and Lucia escaping from. This first scene, number 48, has the three guys really up close coming into the shot. The one right at the beginning of the shot has an arm sleeve tattoo of what looks like, it's definitely a face, maybe a pink dog or a creature or something like that. I think you can get these in GTA Online, so I'd have to go and double check if this is one that is available or not. I'm sure you guys in the comments will be able to very quickly see if that's true or not.
Yeah, I didn't feel like these characters, there wasn't much to say about them because I didn't, apart from in this scene, I feel like I haven't seen them anywhere else. They're wearing an earpiece. So that feels like a nice touch for the way they communicate. And as we get to the next screen, we will see that who looks like the boss of this unit is also wearing an earpiece. So, this is one of those scenes that feels a little bit out of step with everything else and a bigger part of a mystery.
And here is that guy. So I think very much this is the raid on that place that Jason and Lucia may or may not be staying in for a night after maybe some criminal activity. You can see a knife, or looks like a knife, sort of graffiti on the wall here. It feels a bit more like a rundown place. This is not anywhere that we've previously seen, but we haven't yet got the identity of this main, what looks like to be, the main boss here.
Yeah, I haven't seen him anywhere else. There seems to be no allusion to who he is. I wonder whether the graffiti was some kind of gang sign or something, but again, I haven't looked at it closely enough to see, oh look, these characters have always got this symbol or this. I haven't drawn those comparisons yet.
And you see him again in the next shot, very much waiting to identify him, but I think he's going to play a pretty key role on this side of the story at least.
And I think the key thing of that scene where you see him face on is actually who you're not seeing, because there's two characters, like one very foreground, you can't make anything out, and one talking to this sort of police chief character. It feels sort of deliberate that they're not shown. And I guess it creates mystery around who is people, informants, whatever are.
Yeah, if you really wanted to jump quite a long way, you could suggest that the guy's arm in the foreground could be Jason. If you wanted to, you could suggest that.
Yes.
And here he is. The interesting bit here is he is the passenger in the car now. This is a red car, which does have some significance because we saw Jason and Lucia driving a red car in trailer 1. He here is on the passenger side. In trailer 1, it was Lucia who's on the passenger side. It's hard to tell if it's the same car from this really close-up image, but what we can tell is it's in Ocean Drive. So you can see on the right-hand side the sign for the Broadwalk Hotel, which actually puts this in quite a populated area at night time. And Jason's firing his gun into that populated area. We don't know what at or who at, but it would suggest that it's quite a public space. This isn't going to be, a quick hit and run sort of drive away on a suburban street. This is a very popular area that is going to bring you some heat, I would say.
Something I thought was nice here is, and this is, I guess, to nod to the leaks without giving away anything remotely spoilery, but there was a note in the leaks from a couple of years ago where it said that you have the ability to get into the car from the main seat or the passenger seat, and he's very much on the passenger side in this one. So yeah, that's an interesting little detail.
Now we can move on to meet another member of the GTA 6 cast. This is Bay Lux. They are one of 2 members of Real Dimes, which have a tagline, viral videos, viral hooks. Baylux and Roxy, aka Real Dimes, have been friends since high school. Girls with the savvy to turn their time shaking down local dealers into cold, hard cash via spicy rap tracks and a relentless social media presence. There is a quote that says, "All my dimes in this club, meet my twin, make it a dub." That could be some song lyrics rather than a quote, if sung properly, which I am not going to do. They believe that they are 1 hit away from fame. They had an early hit single with local rapper Dawnplay. Is that how we're going to say that?
Oh, Dawnplay. Who knows?
Which took Real Dimes to new heights. And now, after 5 years and a whole lot of trouble, they're signed to Only Raw Records, hoping lightning can strike twice. Only Raw Records is Dr. Quan Priest, who we will meet in a second. He seems to be the owner of that record label. But this is some quite prominent people that I think we're going to see quite a lot throughout, at least in and around the world when we're hanging around.
It feels like they've got a bigger significance to the plot. They're quite, they're one of the main characters on the website. They've appeared in a lot of the trailers. It feels like it should be more than them just being sort of a grifter type rappers who want to make it. It feels like there's something more there. There might be something in the fact that it talks about them, I guess, basically leveraging real life street scenarios and gang problems for their videos and inspiration for their lyrics. Perhaps there's something they filmed or done or seen that becomes part of a much bigger conspiracy. We don't know that for sure yet. Humorous aside, when she makes the sort of gun sign with her fingers, she has the longest fingers I've ever seen. And not just because she has the most incredible fingernails I've ever seen. Now, whether that's just for that character or there are such extensive customization options that you go down the level of like changing your fingernails if you were Lucia. That's the sort of thing, you would like to expect to be able to do with Lucia, to really customize it to the max. That's all wait and see stuff, but I think that would be super cool.
Well, Dan, wait until we get a few scenes further through this trailer, and I might have some pieces of information for you about that very thing.
Oh, and before we move on, we mustn't forget, in the background, we can glimpse the train monorail system, which is relates to a transit system that actually was first hinted at in the leaks going back a few years. So that could be they're just fixing some leaks or confirming some leaks, potentially.
The next shot, and we're back in the 919 nightclub. The outfits are the same. It's just a continuation of the dance scene that we saw earlier. I don't think we need to dwell on this any further.
The only thing I was going to say was, is it possible to read the time on the watch again? I
tried really hard,
yeah,
and I don't think it is.
I think I also failed, so let's move on.
We will move on to being outside of the Starlet Motel. This has, as you'll be pleased to know, Dan, king-size beds, pool, and Wi-Fi. Great stuff. We can see Jason throwing someone against the car here. There's a car on fire in the background. There's a lot of stuff that has gone on in this scene. There's another shot of this location, which would put this in Port Gellhorn. So we'll be able to identify exactly where this is probably in the coming weeks. We will take all of these screenshots and be able to plot them on a map and work out exactly where everything is in relation to other things. So that will be coming up soon. In that screenshot from the Port Gellhorn pack, this is looking in the opposite direction. And here we can actually see a pool with some sun loungers in this shot, which if you go back to the 2022 leaks, is one of the locations that one of those videos featured. There are lots of conspiracy theory, or like people who are very into conspiracy theories seem to reside in and around Port Gellhorn, which might tie back to some of the things we talked about last week.
Like also in this scene, you can see quite notably like a burning SUV style vehicle. Now, I guess whether somebody or one of these people we see in the frame was in that car, they get out, or whether that's something in the background. There's also like an emergency services or commercial pickup truck that we see in that scene. Just before we move on, we were debating, is it 100% Jason doing the throwing? It does look like his face. The thing I would note is, this is the longest I think I've seen his hair in any of the scenes of the trailer. So if there is a chronology, that would imply that this is either very far deep into time or before in time, because most of the haircut he has is that crop haircut. So it's either, months after or months/years before. You also notice he's got a little bruise of blood on his elbow, which is quite significant. So whether your characters will have, whether your characters will actually get, real-time cuts, bruising, etc., we'll wait and see.
What you might get some cuts and bruising from, how do you like that link? That's pretty good, is fighting. And here we can see Lucia in what appears to be a cage match, doing some kickboxing. Now, does this hint at a return of cage fighting that we saw in GTA 4, the Ballad of Gay Tony, or is it just a nice way to show, Lucia is very into fighting? As we mentioned in the last episode, all of Lucia's background is very much around fighting, and all of the wording is about her fighting her way out of difficult situations and now hoping for a better life in Vice City. The only thing to note here that maybe is unusual is that she's not wearing her necklace, like the boxing necklace. Now, most people would say, well, of course, because you don't wear jewelry when you're doing cage fighting.
It'd be high risk.
But she is wearing some really massive hoop earrings. So she's not taken all her jewelry off. So then why would she not be wearing the necklace?
And there's actually a little series of scenes coming up where she's not wearing the necklace, which, as we will talk about, are possibly on a different bit of chronology. So, whether the necklace we marked as significant in the last episode, why it goes on or off, or where we are in it, perhaps there's something to break down there. I think there will be some sort of fight thing. It seems pretty significant. Fighting is clearly integral to her character and background, so this is a nice touch. We can also see in this scene like a guy in the background filming or taking photos, so just ties into that sort of dynamic events and selfies feel.
Now, this is one of those scenes where she's not wearing that necklace, I believe. You can see Jason and Lucia in their apartment. You may be questioning whether this is the same house as the one that we see at the beginning of the trailer that Jason is renovating. I'm going to say that it definitely is. What's happened here is it's slightly to the, as we're looking at it, right-hand side. The thing you see in the background is a sheet that's been hung up over the window. And later on in this trailer, we actually see that gets replaced with a lovely blind. But that corridor on the left-hand side, the door that you can just about make out and see some light through, is the front door of the house. So a bit further to the left of this is where their snake lives, in the tank. Later on, we see this same sofa is the one that Jason and Lucia ended up having a nice relaxing time on while they're watching TV.
Totally agree. This would... I guess either it's really before the house is done up, or they're pulling it apart to renovate it after, because his haircut is now short and cropped, where we see him when he's fixing some leaks, his hair's a bit more mottled and what have you. But what is clear is that the apartment is being renovated in some way. And as we've said, her boxing glove necklace is missing now for reasons.
The next scene is a continuation of this shot when Jason and Lucia are having a conversation. We covered the Gellhorn International t-shirt in last week's episode. There was some debate about whether this was going to be another international airport. It is, in fact, a raceway, or at least based on a raceway. You can see a car just at the very bottom of her t-shirt there, doing a bit of research. This is the Sebring Raceway in Miami. It's a reference to that, now I imagine called Gellhorn International Raceway. And now we have the only piece of major action in the trailer where there is a lot of things going on. Lucia is here holding what I believe is a grenade launcher and firing at the pursuing cars. There's a police car here from Vice Dale. There's also a SWAT van. it looks to me like she is wearing the bandana from the bank heist that we saw earlier. So is this the aftermath of that bank heist? Like they are escaping from the police after having done quite what we suspect is a public robbery, because when we look at the other clips on the website of the three of them leaving, that's like it's in the daytime, they're in a big street. It's the kind of Heat style video that we mentioned last week.
Yeah.
What kind of vehicle do you think she is in here?
Yeah, like you speculated, like a bus. It does look that way. It's really large and wide framed, so that would make complete sense. I think in terms of standing at what you were saying about it looks like it's the escalation of the Raul Batista heist that we've talked about. I was just looking side by side, and she's wearing what looks like quite a high-necked bulletproof vest. And to see those two, there's on the official website, you can see the Raul Batista artwork that scrolls slowly, and you see this. It looks the same. Her hair is tied up the same. So it's logical to suggest this is the escalation of that scene. And like we talked about on last week's show, this doesn't feel like something, once you've gone there with this style of destruction, you're not a low-level crook anymore.
No.
And if she'd done this and got paroled, I'd be really surprised, because if you're firing a rocket launcher at a police car, I don't think you're getting out anytime soon, right?
No.
So this to me says this is later in the story.
Yeah, I think we're of the assumption that whole jail time for Lucia is early in the story, and I would imagine, you would work your way out of doing that community service style things as a way to tutorialize some of the new features in the game.
Yeah.
And keep Lucia locked to a certain location for a while, in much the same way as the bridges used to operate. You would just now be, you still got your ankle tag on, you can't go in these places. So, yeah, and then I think after that, this happens. And now we move on to everybody's favorite scene, because it has the word manatees in it. This is where we meet Draquan Priest. He is, as we mentioned, I think the owner of Only Raw Records. He was described on the website as always more of a hustler than a gangster, even when he was dealing on the streets to make ends meet. Breaking into music was the goal. The screenshots show him hanging out with Bay Lux and Roxy, aka Real Dimes, and as we know, he was the one that has now signed them up. He's got a Manatees football jersey on, and as we mentioned a couple of episodes ago, this is Rockstar's take on the Miami Dolphins. Branding is very much the same. A nice little detail here, I think, is he's wearing the number 19 shirt, and the number 19 does seem to be an important number to him. He's brought the football jersey with that number on, but he's also got the same number tattooed on his hand that you can identify in some other screenshots. He's got a number of other tattoos that say things like stay humble, win some, lose some, but the number 19 does, for some reason, seem to be significant to Mr. Priest.
Yeah, and I wonder what they're reacting to, like what on the phone is making them go, like they both look pretty surprised by it. I don't know exactly what.
Surprised, shocked.
Yeah, shocked. So something's clearly going on that screen. You'd noted, well, this is for you, James. You're the number one observer of dogs. You've noticed the dog in the background.
There is a dog in the background. This, I believe, is dog number 2. No, dog number 3 for the trailer. We've seen the woman holding the Chihuahua. We have seen another dog being walked in the park, and here is dog number 3. I think it looks like a Doberman to me, but it's being a very good boy and just sitting down waiting for, I imagine, the two people taking selfies to finish doing that so they can continue their walk.
Yeah, and I'd noted off, like, who knows what people's persuasion or sexuality is, but I'd noticed they're quite camp. Like the pose he's taking the selfie with is quite camp. That might in itself mean nothing, but what I would say is that's a nice touch for diversity and representation within the game.
Couple of quick other things. Priest's necklace has the symbol on it for Only Raw Records, so you'll easily be able to identify him in other scenes. I imagine he'll wear that quite a lot. And watch fans, the time on his watch says 5 minutes past 4 in the afternoon. So if we're putting things into a timeline, this is what 5 minutes past 4 in the afternoon looks like in Vice City. Speaking of things being out of order, this scene feels like maybe the most significant one that has escalated into something else. Now, this is Lucia, who I believe is the one in the high-vis jacket here, suggesting that she has snuck onto the plane, and another woman who's jumping to tackle her. It's reasonably easy to identify where this plane is actually flying over. Its landing gear is down. I think in real life it's flying over Bricknell Park and then the One Miami Consortium. So it's sort of south to north. The plane is flying from the south to the north. The Vice City International Airport would be to the west of this, I believe. But for this plane to then be able to get to that airport, it would have to almost do a 45-degree bank. So I don't think it's landing in there, but all of that probably needs a little bit more investigation and research to work out what all of these buildings are. And I know some of the people on GTA forums are already doing that.
Yeah, it does feel like a very out of time scene and a very high escalation scene, because it's like something out of Uncharted, isn't it? It's pretty wild. So it's hard to square this up with, for example, them robbing a corner store like we see at the end of trailer 1. So, it feels deeper in the chronology. Let's see.
And then somewhat in the middle of those two things, between corner store and getting onto a jet plane, is this scene where they are robbing a vault or a safe. Now, I guess the thing to discuss here is this street looks, to me, residential. So we're either robbing an individual or like a high-powered or mid-powered someone associated with gangs or something, or we're just driving through this neighborhood to get away from the place where we've robbed this from. Like, I can see this kind of safe being in, a very opulent house that you could rob it from as an individual. And equally, it could be a sort of small-scale bank that might have one of these things.
Yeah, it's whether I assume you can't accidentally pick up a safe of this size and end up with it. It can't be a thing they did on the hoof. It must be quite a planned endeavor to do that. And so I don't know where I stand and what you were proposing. Something I would say that visually is interesting here, apart from the amazing spark effects as it gets dragged and sort of whistled along the tarmac, as the safe hits the tree, there's a cascade of brown leaves. And I'd meant to flag this earlier on in the scene where Lucia is jumping down from the apartment, where there's loose leaves all over the roof there. Some people were speculating that there will be, whether it's a proper autumnal weather system or whether it's just a nice particle effects realism thing. But that's a really cool and amazingly technical thing.
So moving on to the scene that you referenced earlier about Jason now being on top and it being the reverse of the end of trailer 1. Here, Lucia's necklace is back. So we can see it quite prominently there, the boxing gloves. This location, I believe, is different than the one that we see at the end of trailer 1. The lighting is different. The bed and the headboard doesn't look the same. So it's a different place that is quite hard to place. The lighting is very much the same as the one that we see of basically just arms and bodies.
Yes.
Whether it's the same thing or not, it's difficult to tell, but it feels like it is from the same place.
Yeah, it feels more symbolically important to me, this scene.
And now we see what you believe, I think, Dan, is a reference to the game's selfie mechanic for the first time.
Like, I might be wrong here. This visually looks like, I'm sure everyone saw that demo that they did for Death Stranding 2 and about the photography in selfie mode, where suddenly the graphics become ultra real and it adds that depth of field portrait effect that you get on iPhones, where it's just like a very sharp, brings the character in the front very sharply into focus. Now, this could be, and this could be based on the grid frame and the play or, the capture button there. I wonder if this is them showing off that kind of mechanic within the game, even down to, and this is similar to Death Stranding, the characters make sort of out of step expressions that feel like, you look at Lucia's face, when you go frame by frame, it just seems not like a standard in-game expression. It's just richer, deeper, a bit more wacky. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like this is a glimpse at an in-game mechanic of this style.
What we are yet to establish, however, is who this person is. He appears to know Jason and Lucia. He's the one in the trailer, I think, that you can hear shout, "Say Vice City, baby," to get everyone to appear to look happy. This is from the same scene as the 919 nightclub scene that we see them enter earlier. If you go frame by frame through the shot, you can actually see Lucia's yellow dress strap on her shoulder, which to me, and the lighting in the background is very much the same as the one where they're dancing. So it's from the same night. Whether this is a significant character or not is yet to be established, or, have these two found fame somewhere and this guy just wants a selfie with them. Let's see.
Something I would know, this is really silly, looking at the angle of his arms and assuming that, I was assuming he was taking the picture. It doesn't look like he's holding the phone because his arms aren't in the right position. Now, it would say to me, he's using the fated selfie stick.
Yeah.
I hate selfie sticks, but it's interesting that they would exist within the universe, and whether these sort of things always appear this way or this is a one-off, we don't know. But yeah, selfie stick not pictured.
Hey folks, producer Nathan here, long-time listener, first-time speaker. Just quickly jumping in to say that this handsome young guy can also be spotted in the rusty anchor beside Jason and Lucia, hinting that he's maybe a friend or a bar buddy who's joined them at the club. Some folk have even guessed that he could be a relation of Lucia's, maybe like a brother or a cousin or something, who knows. Anyway, just wanted to jump in and say that. Back to JJ and Dan.
So let's take a trip back to Ocean Drive here. We can see in front of the Dominion Hotel is what looks to be a benefactor shafter. The first thing to note is check out the rims on that car. Like, it's got some incredible modifications going on with giant spikes coming out the side. But the most interesting thing for me here is the guy that we see having a photo with 3 women.
Yes.
And I am going to make the statement here that these 3 women are more important than anybody is giving them credit for. We have seen these 3 women, I believe, twice in trailer 1, once at the beach in the daytime, and then once walking down this street, or near enough this street, at night. And here they are again in the daytime, all hanging out together. They appear to be, if someone's getting a selfie with them, some kind of either local celebrities or infamous people that people want to have pictures with and be seen with. Who they are is yet to be determined, but I think they're going to play a more significant role than we think.
Yeah, I initially, because we were looking at the screenshots, and I was like, are they the same people? Because there's slight cosmetic differences. But when you see them side by side, I think it's pretty clear. Like, they are the same people. Why would Rockstar have them appear at 3 separate instances across the 2 trailers unless there was something there, whether it's significant to the plot or something about them and a mechanic or a system that we're not seeing or exploring properly?
Yeah, this isn't them running out of models and just putting character models and just putting them, I don't know, plonk those 3 people back in the scene, it will work. There is something in this that is yet to be established. And I'll say the woman in the blue bikini in this shot in trailer 2 does seem to have more tattoos on her leg than she does in trailer 1. Now, this could just be, like we've seen some of the other characters, a like trailer 2 glow up for some of these characters.
Yeah.
Or it hints to being, NPCs evolving over time and, having different looks and getting tattoos throughout the story. But, that is would be a nice touch.
And you're right. And I think that there's other instances of this across the trailers and even in the main characters. Like we see very noticeably that like Jason's face has improved in his model. And you go back in time and you look at GTA 5 trailer 1 to what it became, the characters change.
Yeah.
You know, as the build develops and the graphics get refined, there is that level as well.
So we flip this into a nighttime scene now where everybody is having a great party time. There's a sign that says taste the pleasure and lots of ladies dancing on the roof. The only question I had for this was what is going on here and why is it such a big party? I don't believe everyone is going to be dancing on the roofs every night of the week, but I could be wrong. So there's obviously some kind of significant party happening here. And I'd just like you all to spare a thought for the guy on the far left who is sitting alone next to some trees on his phone.
Yeah, I think what apart from the fact that we probably live in the wrong part of the world, James, and maybe this does happen every single night somewhere.
Possibly.
Is in this scene you actually see people interacting with their phone in different ways. So you can see that kind of sad looking guy or the guy taking a break looking at his phone to browse it. There's also in the foreground, it looks almost like a guy is taking someone's number on the phone. So I guess again it's the phone as having multiple purposes. Like life, we're all using our phones all the time.
Continuing with the theme of things taking place at night. Well, I guess you can go to this club in the day if you wanted to, but it feels nighttime-ish because of the lighting. We are here in the Jack of Hearts Club. You can see a sign for this in the background, and one of the dancers has a JH top on. This is the same club that we saw in trailer 1, albeit again with trailer 2 graphics. There's a couple of signs here for Seduction Saturday and Sinful Sunday, which again plays into the are things going to happen on specific days of the week.
Yeah.
The really deep cut here is that the banknotes actually have the presidents from Red Dead Redemption 2 on them. So we can see President Cornwall and President Hardin on some of the banknotes as where you would put the serving, as you would put the presidents of the United States on those banknotes. They are presidents from back in the Red Dead 2 days. Now, I think all this is doing is it having a nice Easter egg and a reference towards those old games. But it does, again, point to Rockstar tying everything together and saying, all of these things are now connected. And what would we call that, Dan? Is it the GTA verse, the Rockstar verse? Because, we've got Remedy having the Remedy verse that connects Control and Alan Wake and all of that kind of thing. We've got the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It does feel to me now like Rockstar are trying to bring all of these things together in a way that either subtly connects them or just gives fans a nice hint towards the other games.
Yeah, I wish I had a cleverer name for it, like the Rockstar Connected Universe, the Rockstar Galaxy. I don't know. Those names are terrible, so strike all of them off. It just seems very deliberate. And there's, as we talked about in trailer 1's analysis, or the first part of this trailer's analysis, there's just loads of little tells that are calling out lore throughout Rockstar's history.
Which we can see quite prominently in this shot. Now, this is the same apartment that we've been talking about before. You can see the same parasol out the back. It's clearly having work done on it. There's paint rollers, an interior paint pot, and a jigsaw, I think, on top of a big storage chest on the left-hand side. There's the heavily debated, is it a PS5?
No.
Is it whatever console, which is, I think, a play on a Sony console to the left of the TV. We've seen consoles appear in GTA before, obviously. In GTA 5, Jimmy had the Exorbo 720, which was the video game console that he had in his house. This appears to be now the new generation console for GTA 6. There's also a controller on the table, which again has been much debated about whether it's a PS4 or PS5 style controller. It's clearly, either way, a rip-off on Sony this time, whereas
Yes.
previously it was Xbox.
Yes, and I cannot believe the heat I've got for not saying on the Bible it's a DualShock 4. And if you say to people online that it's not a DualShock 4, they get furious. I will just add, once again, it is not connecting to a PlayStation 4. And in fact, the bigger point, as you just made, it's all made up.
Yeah.
So let's not get too worried about that one.
The big point here, and speaking back to the connected universe, is the advert on the TV here is for Phil's ammunition. The tagline for that is protecting your rights. The question was whether this is Phil Cassidy from GTA Vice City. The answer to that is almost unequivocally going to be no, because in Vice City, Phil blew his arm off. And unless something miraculous has happened, he's got 2 arms in this trailer. So it's not him, unless we are, mixing the 3D era with the HD character lore. But I don't believe we're doing that. I think what is more plausible is that Phil's ammunition as a brand has continued, and perhaps this is his son or relative who is now running the store.
Yeah, sure. Or he's got incredible synthetic robotic arms.
Or that.
Which seems less plausible.
Either way, it's a really nice callback. But yeah, I think if you are trying to suggest that it's him, he's now got an extra arm from somewhere and is probably about 40 years younger than he should be. So it's not going to work out. Now, what we could do here is go through all of the guns in the background and identify all of the weapons that may or may not now be in GTA 6. That is an entire other episode.
Oh, it is.
So we will, cover that at some point in the future. What I will say about the guns is that some of them, at least, seem to be manufactured by Duke, which is the same Duke that made the weapons in Red Dead Redemption 2. So it's the same weapon manufacturer and now making the guns, or still making guns, to this day. Again, most likely a nod and an Easter egg for really hardcore fans of Rockstar's games. But on the other hand, could just be the brands continuing throughout all of the series that Rockstar are creating. And quickly, just before we move on, check out the bubbles in the beer, Dan. They're moving.
Oh, yeah, it's a super fun, tiny detail.
And this scene is the reverse of that shot. So now we're looking from the TV out into the apartment. Lucia is coming home from the community service that we saw her doing earlier in the trailer. She's got an LCD high vis on, which I imagine stands for the Leonida Department of Corrections, which identifies them all as doing that kind of work while they're picking up all of the litter. The house here may be further along than before. The bedroom window we can see in the background that previously had that green sheet hanging over it now has a lovely blind. So there's been some progress here, but still looks like there's some work to do. Outside of the city now, and we are flying over the marshland, most likely the grasslands area. But the thing I wanted to highlight here is, on first glance, you may think that the guy hanging out the helicopter is holding some kind of weapon or like minigun ready to shoot whatever comes into vision. But actually, I believe he is holding a camera and it is mounted on a tripod. So does this suggest some kind of wildlife spotting or hunting side activity rather than a criminal escape?
Yeah, I think that'd be much more interesting. And there's the screenshots that we haven't analysed yet, and we will. Some of them show what looks almost like alligator rustling or crocodile rustling. So whether you're trying to bust those guys, or I think perhaps more plausibly trying to spot different bits of like animal life in the Riverland, let's wait and see.
There's some further evidence to support that in this next shot. We can see what I believe is a boar, but somebody please correct me if I'm wrong. I originally wrote water buffalo, but they have giant horns, I think. So it looks more like a boar to me that's just running out of the shot. The only other thing to note is this is just, again, the incredible amount of detail from the interior of the chopper.
Yeah.
You can see like all of the switches and the dials. It's a huge step up from GTA 5. Moving on from that, and we see Jason and Lucia back having a good time here. They're riding a sea shark around the bay. Could this, I think as we mentioned last week, be the same location as the boat that we see them on earlier in the trailer? You could make that argument. Again, we will map all of these locations in a later episode and probably be able to identify whether that could be the case or not. But not much more to say about this scene other than they're having a nice time.
Yeah, I briefly got excited thinking, is this a reverse of the dad bod squad thing? Now, actually, the boat's different. So, like, the boat in the dad bod squad is green. It's people partying, but I don't think it's literally the same scene or location. But, let's look at that again.
The next scene is a lot more interesting, where we see Jason riding this motorcycle as a seaplane flies overhead. You can, if you pause it in the right place, identify this seaplane via the number on its wing, N57191C. The question would be, is this the same seaplane that we see them loading up back in earlier in the trailer in scene number 30? And I'm going to say yes. Yes, it is. The numbers on the wing, you can match them up. If you look at that screenshot and zoom into it, you can just about make out a 157 on the wing in that nighttime shot. The likelihood of two planes having N57 and then some other numbers is slim, I would say. So this is either before or after that load up in the night. I'm going to say that maybe this is the morning after and they've loaded the plane up and now we're heading off somewhere. But, let's work that out. So that's one potential heist setup. And in this shot, we can see another one. This is them robbing what looks like a sports car. And the most interesting bit here is that the truck has a Liberty City number plate. Now, the discussion point around this is, if the map is an island, like previous GTA games, how does a truck from Liberty City end up in Vice City? By boat, I'd imagine. But normally, in real life, to get from Liberty City to Vice City, you would just drive across the land.
You just drive, and there might be things like bridges and stuff like that.
Yeah. But what does this mean for Vice City and its connection to Liberty City and the map in general? Like, if it's going to be surrounded by water, fine. But is there going to be some roads out that somehow you are just blocked from going down too far?
This will all dovetail with what the mapping project, the excellent mapping project people are doing. It might be that this is why they're leaning into the equivalent of like Georgia and a mountainous area, because mountains are brilliant for providing, in what used to be in video games, the invisible Truman Show style wall where you hit the edge of an environment. I think with mountain ranges, you can just make them impossible to fly or climb over. So that might be their get out. But in theory, someone could drive across the winding road. It's just they don't give you that option in the invisible perimeter of the map. Like, we'll wait and see with all of that stuff. But that seems to be where the mapping project people are thinking at the moment. So rather than us having a completely, like you say, completely water exposed island, it seems to like cut at the top.
Or there's, like you say, mountains, or, a tunnel that is for some reason blocked up.
Yeah.
And you can no longer drive down
conveniently closed forever.
Yeah. In this next shot, we can actually see a wider scene here. It's the same thing, but from a slightly wider angle. It allows you to identify where we are going. We're driving into the city, I believe. But again, we will make sure that we tie all of that up. What you can see is some of the buildings surrounding the truck here. There is one for Megamundo, which I believe is a Spanish language news company. And this appears, I guess, to be their headquarters. It's based on Telemundo, which is an American Spanish terrestrial network in the US. We have previously seen this in trailer 1. It had a hashtag Megamundo News.
Ah, very good.
When we were looking at the shot of the Joker on the news report, you can see them putting their hashtag underneath it. So that appears to be the building of their headquarters. And there's also 2 instances of what looks like a sort of pride-style flag going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the people pick up on that. There's definitely the coloration, which makes perfect sense. Depending on where you stop the frame, you can actually see the number plate quite clearly. So you can see the number plate of the truck is PDP E6. And then I should probably be able to identify the actual car they're stealing. I haven't done that. It looks like one of the supercars, basically. And that says ZNSH3. And that's also a Leonida plate. And it says, I think it says underneath, coastline state, I think. Now, the thing I thought was really interesting, when you capture and zoom on that number plate, the background of the number plate has what looks like it is an orange with 2 green leaves.
And where have we seen that before?
Well, in the 2 Islands postcard that did the rounds from various fan sites, where we'd said on the last episode, we don't think it's 2 islands. It actually looks more like 2 oranges with some leaves on it opposite the sun. Now, when you put this number plate alongside the postcard, it's not 100% map, but it would say the iconography of the oranges, or whatever they call it, Sunshine State, Orange County, whatever they call it, there's something there that's consistent. So I would say that this is proof that within the Leonida universe, the oranges with the little green leaves on them is a recurrent motif. And I think would then make it even less likely that the postcard is of 2 islands.
Yes. Oranges on the postcard confirmed. Next up, we have them in the motel. Now, this is, I'm certain, the same motel that we see at the end of trailer 1. It looks like Jason has just come back and Lucia is very excited to see him. So has she been waiting for him to return from doing something that they thought may or may not go the way that they wanted to? And he's arrived and everything's great. That's what I would read into her reaction here. Watch fans, time update. Dan, I think you wrote this, or maybe I did. It looks like it's 10:50 or 11:50. If you pause and zoom in.
It's real hard to be sure here.
And we will just round off this shot by saying, cute little thing, in case of fire, everyone should meet by the pool.
Oh. And jump in as the flames lick the building.
Yeah, if you want. Next up, there's only a couple of scenes left to go. This is a pretty nondescript boat being chased by a Vicedale helicopter. This is not the same boat that we have seen in trailer 1 when they are driving through the port. It's a totally new thing, but not much to go over in this scene. However, this one, there is quite a few things to point out. Most notably that we are entering Port Gellhorn here.
Yeah, it's a very clear sign saying, welcome to Port Gellhorn. It's not a very glorious welcome because it looks like you're deep in trouble. There's signs all over this. There's one in the background for the I think it's the Crossroad Park mini mall. It's a mall, of course, there's malls. Then up on the top, the signage on the freeway, we've got the 404 East with an arrow pointing left to Mariana County and Vicedale County. We just talked about the Vicedale police chopper. So this seems like similar location. Then we've got the 9 North, which goes to Draper Island. Have we talked about Draper Island before?
Not yet, I don't think, no.
No, it felt new to me, so I don't know what that means or if it's of any greater significance, but in my mind, that was like the first reference to it. And then we've also got, and this I guess might actually weirdly root back round to what I was saying earlier, and you were saying you might have a treat for me. The Happy Nails shop.
Yeah, here comes the treat. Happy Nail shop on the very far left-hand side. If you zoom in enough, you can see this on a row of shops. Now, throughout the trailer, as we mentioned, Lucia and other characters have different length nails and designs. This, to me, would seemingly confirm the presence of that type of shop where you can go and get custom designs and different things like that in the same way as we used to go and get haircuts and buy different outfits. Nail bars have obviously become quite the thing since GTA 5 to GTA 6 in the last 10 or so years. It doesn't surprise me that this is here. It would also not surprise me that this is how you go and customize that part of your outfit. And then Lucia is driving the car here as Jason makes the jump and grabs it. The thing I would like to discuss is, where has Jason actually jumped from here, do you think? It feels like in the first frame that he is coming from above the car. So there is a potential that he's jumped off a bike or something small like that. It's definitely not from another car. But as you skip forward in the scene, there's nothing like left on the road. Like there's no vehicle or anything that Jason would have been driving, which would have then lost control and skidded off somewhere or done whatever. So where do we think he's come from? Or do we think he has come from a bike and it's just for some reason had to be removed because maybe it's too much of a spoiler or a hint towards something else?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it does look like he's sort of he's dropping and from the side. But he's able to, with his last gasp, reach out his right arm and save himself. So he's clearly been moving at pace. It's really hard to know, right? And Rockstar do have form for omitting key details from key scenes. So it's hard to say. I guess you could say, at best, it's an amazing bit of animation. The way his body reacts, his musculature reacts, that's fine. But you're right. I think there's probably, perhaps deliberately, something missing there.
What hasn't been left out is that they drive past a shop called Burnout Scooters, which I imagine are small motorbike type things rather than e-scooters, but who knows? And there's a sign for Watkins Auto Parts, another phone number here in the trailer, 305-555-0128. I hope somebody is noting all of these down and will immediately call all of them as soon as we get our hands on it. And the final two scenes here, this one is from within Brian's boat workshop,
yes.
I imagine. And there's quite a number of stickers here on the left-hand side.
Yeah, on the little workbench, there's a few little stickers. One says Canis. I initially got excited and went, oh, it's Canis, Canimed, it's Bully. No, it's in fact GTA's version of the Jeep brand. So Canis is quite well known to GTA players. There's an 8-ball sticker. Whether this is just an 8-ball sticker or is it a little throwback to the character 8-ball from GTA 3 or Liberty City Stories. 8-ball was kind of a firearms dealer who did some sort of bomb stuff with him. Who knows? But at a minimum, it's a very nice callback. There's various other logos which felt a touch less significant. Now, you see Cal Hampton again. Fun fact, Cal's holding a beer, and as he moves his arms up and down, you can see the fluid bounce out of the bottle, which is another really cute little mechanic. He's also like mega oily and sweaty. Now, if you zoom onto his right leg, you are then starting to see the tattoo that, as we identified last week, is where the Piggsy, inverted commas, tattoo is. It looks a lot like Piggsy. But in this instance, it looks a bit less like Piggsy, and there's like another face by the side of it. But it's so blurry. I struggle to put the two together. But in theory, you should be able to see the Piggsy tattoo on his leg here. I'll have to go back to this, sharpen it, and be a bit more clear. But there is something else next to the Piggsy tattoo in this version of it.
What I will say, Dan, is I like the Piggsy theory and the fact that it's, I think, sort of like is entered the myth and legend sort of world of GTA 6 rather, because we know that the Manhunt city is mentioned quite a lot throughout the GTA universe. Like it definitely exists. Piggsy is obviously dead. If you haven't played,
he's highly likely to be dead.
Yeah, yes, he's definitely highly likely to be dead. But what could happen, a la Scream, is that people have now recreated some of those things, and you could have an instance of a Piggsy-style murder spree within GTA 6.
Yeah, to become Piggsy, you basically need to kill people and wear the pig mask. And so the spirit of Piggsy could well live on. And I think for people who closely followed the leaks, you might be putting two and two together here.
Which leads us on to the final shot of the trailer. Well, bar one, the next one is the end slate, which is a lovely wide shot of the city. Very easy to pinpoint this, as we will do in future episodes. Couple of key points here is there's a dedicated cycle lane for bikes, which is new. So that will be fun to see and be able to ride around safely, hopefully, on your bike. The car that we see here is perhaps the most interesting bit. It is red. It is the same one from trailer 1. You can match up the number plates, which is N9C T4M. Very much the same. But what is different is this car is missing all of the bumper stickers and stickers from the rear window that are on the car in trailer 1. This either hints to an incredible level of detail of you being able to add stickers to your cars now and put brands that you like within your cars, or it's at a different point in time. And what helps back up that theory is that the door here in this trailer 2 shot is a different color than the rest of the car, which suggests it's either been replaced or resprayed at some point. Most likely, I would say, is at some point that door gets smashed off, perhaps in some kind of getaway attempt, and they've just had to replace it with another door that is now grey and not red. Dan
Agreed.
nods along.
I'm nodding.
agreement.
Sorry, I sounded so f***ing right. I agree. I think like customization. Yeah. Yes. Nod.
All of which leads us to the end slate that says GTA 6, May 26th, 2026, all footage captured on PlayStation 5. So for anyone who is still debating whether this is, pre-rendered stuff, it is not. It is right there, stated for you, captured on PlayStation 5. They've reiterated the May 26th date. And as we said in part 1 of this huge analysis, it feels likely that May 26th is going to be the date now. I would not anticipate another delay now it has been dated, especially given the fact that this ties into the anniversary of Bonnie's funeral and Ray Liotta's death.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a date, but let's put it this way. This is a date they definitely don't want to miss.
No.
And there's a big difference between saying, like they did, fall 2025, which gives you immediately a 3-month shoot, to it's definitively this day. And I'd have to go back and double check this. Certainly with GTA 5, when they locked the date to the day, they stuck to it. It's just that when they had a window, they had flexibility.
Yeah.
They don't anymore. Will we get more on that in the earnings call later today? I don't know. Probably not, because I don't think Strauss-Zelnick knows any more than us whether they're definitively 100% going to hit that date. But I guess they set it sufficiently far forward in the future. They would have gone, come on, let's be clear about where we are. Is there any danger of us missing this date? No, it feels safe. And it ties in with these dates, and it's really lovely. So done. Let's go for that. Who knows? As we said, there could be an EMP blast. So anything could happen to stop it.
Yes.
But, I can't think of many games that were delayed by an EMP blast.
No, not in the reality that we live in now.
No.
Maybe in video game world,
No.
EMPs are much more prevalent.
Just in my mind, I'm quite tired.
Yes.
So yes.
Well, that wraps up this huge analysis of the GTA 6 trailer 2. Thank you all for watching. As always, you can get in touch with us on Twitter at GTAVOclock or via email gtavIoclock@gmail.com. We've seen all of your emails coming in over the last week from the last episode. Thank you all for pointing out everything. We will probably do an episode where we go through and discuss all of the points that you've raised, equally with all of the comments. Thank you so much. I am now very much aware that iguanas are present all throughout of Miami. So that was a great piece of information. Now I want to go there even more. There is also a newsletter you can sign up for, gamesradar.com/newsletter, where Dan will make all of this into a compact 1 sheet's worth of information.
Oh my life. Do you know, and as we leave this call, that's literally my job this afternoon. The mere act of condensing 4 hours of screenshot analysis into 3 cogent paragraphs. There will be a lot of follow this link and listen to the episode. And I will include some of the details you're adding in the comments, because as diligent as we try to be and as much as we try to join the dots, unsurprisingly, there's some super experts out here, and it's hard to beat the hive mind of the internet. So this is what I love about GTA 6 o'clock. It's, we're privileged enough to talk about it. It's the community that makes it, and it's your input that makes this show what it is. So thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for all your likes and comments and subscribing to the channel. It does really help and gives us a sense of purpose. We can carry on with this knowing that you are enjoying it. Thank you very much. So we will wrap this up here, but don't worry, we will be back for another episode of GTA 6 O'Clock.